Go ahead.
We're gonna. So we're live now. So we're gonna start streaming, and then we're gonna post the link everywhere. Um, we'll see if anyone joins us, Mr. Bobby. I'll tell you what, Bobby. I was looking forward to this all week. Like literally from the moment after we ended last week, and that whole Saturday, I was thinking, man, I can't wait to do this next week. And the whole week I was thinking about it, and now I'm and now we're doing it again. Welcome back, Mr.
Wonderful.
Bobby. I'm just posting it in my Telegram. I would post it on Twitter, but I'm technically not on Twitter right now. Um,
Uh,
but
you're detoxing?
I'm detoxing. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I need a detox for the U.S. event that's going to take place in Nashville. I'm not going to get back on Twitter. Plus, Bobby, you know some stuff that was going on behind the scenes. That's a reason as to why I'm not going to be online very much for the next month or so. But, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back.
Ah,
Welcome back to the life and suffering of Sir Brant with myself and Bobby, my absolutely insane Russian linguist companion, as we once again decide to go through a game smashing our thumbs with a hammer.
yeah, but this time it's going to be more Milton, and Milton's going to leave his nest or begin to leave his nest.
Yeah, begin to leave his nest. I'm gonna turn the sound
Yeah.
down because last week it was I listened to it last week to get an idea of how the sound quality was, and I think the sound effects were a bit too loud. But I'll tell you what, I'm gonna re-download Twitter just for a moment and post the link on Twitter.
That's all right. Well, the one thing, if you ever meet a Russian person and you know that he has spent his childhood in Russia, if you mention to him copper hunting, he will be very happy and very confused, but he will definitely be very happy. If he's like around 20, 25 or something, he will have, he would have surely have had an experience with like running around dilapidated buildings and like stripping copper wiring, or at least like saying that he does it, knowing someone that does it. Oh, we also did. We also made pipe guns. I remember.
You made pipe guns. so
Yeah,
so
pipe
life
guns.
life in
It was very
Russia
popular.
life in Russia is just in essence Fallout.
No, well, I mean, I guess. Yeah, I guess like till a lot of places are post-apocalyptic. I mean, Italy has had the same problems. I mean, the Casabon guys told me that they had like their whole movement started in Rome, and early 2000s was very fun for them because they found a whole abandoned metropolitan station, and not an underground one. It's like above ground, and they just lived there for like 6 years until the police booted them out. They had like concerts there, and no one cared because it was post-apocalyptic. After the war, after the whole world got eviscerated by, the combined efforts of like every bigwig in the world.
That's true. Yeah, and this is a
Mm.
point that Christopher Sandbach has made before, is that the apocalypse already happened. Like, oh shoot, the apocalypse already happened, and it I'm trying to find the right way to say this, but basically the 1970s, kind of like what we call Western civilization, none of us even like lived to see. Like it was gone, it was dead and gone by about 1970, and we're kind of like, it's kind of like a cyberpunk apocalypse, you could say, but it's like we're all sort of like post-apocalyptic war bands kind of poking through the ruins of what used to be
Mm.
Western society. And
Yeah, but they're not war bands. They're brigades.
yeah, that's oh, okay, I get you. Brigada. Um,
Yeah, yeah, brigada.
um, was it they're not red brigades in Italy still, are there?
No. I was talking in pure like city marauders type stuff.
Yeah, that's
Like in
true.
Russian. There's a famous Russian TV series called Brigada, or as they have translated, Law of the Lawless.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yeah,
Well,
um,
excellent. Well, we're gonna. I've posted the links. I've got Twitter back. Agent
how much
Syrup
for the
says in the
hiatus?
chats. I literally said when I was posting my hiatus message, I would still be streaming with Bobby. Like I made that. Like I made this a exclusive exception. You know, my hiatus is from Twitter. Like I'm taking a hiatus. You know, from the stuff that I feel like I have to do, and instead I'm doing the things I want to do, because I'm telling y'all this right now, like this stuff I did with Bobby, this is the most fun I have had making content in a while, and I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna keep doing this until we get through this game, and once we get through this game, we're probably gonna play another game. Once we get through that other,
Dude,
as long,
Suzerain. I've
yeah,
got big plans for Suzerain, and I'll tell you as we finish this. You will love it. It'll be like, mwah,
yeah.
chef's kiss.
Well, Mr. Bobby, I'm gonna go run downstairs and get another cup of coffee, and then once I get back, we're going to continue with our good old Lotless playthrough.
Very good. Go
I'll be
ahead.
right back. All right, Bobby, I'm back.
Wonderful. Let's go ahead. Let's start.
Excellent. So we're gonna continue.
Adolescence. Adolescence.
Continue.
Adult.
Okay, we did all this last week. All right. Yep. So just a review from what we did last week. Let's take a look at how John Milton is doing right now. Extremely perceptive, spineless. He doesn't want to do anything. He's a bit tired. He certainly had a busy childhood, learning all of these things about everything. He had a really busy childhood committing the sin of intellect.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man.
But he got the insight experience. He has not yet died. The fencing lesson and nobleman's sacrament are for another path that you can take Sir Brante down. That's the path I usually go down. But this time we are John Milton, and he watched his ants very closely and realized that the universe is and the whole world is just one big clock.
One big ant farm.
One big ant farm indeed. I mean, we kind of ruined our house's reputation, but we're doing all right. Anyway, this is what we did last week, and now we are about to go into adolescence.
I was growing up fast. The school, the streets, and the whole wide world awaited me beyond the gate of my parents' house.
So, Bobby, what's interesting about the way they structure this game in terms of the life of an individual that you're following is that it really is the closest. This is the best executed game I have ever found of following someone from birth till death and they remove as many perceptions as possible to make you feel like you are growing up with them. You know, the idea of like when you're a young child in your formative years, you never really... I have no real memories prior to age 7 that did not have to do with my house, you know, that were not around my house.
I went to Egypt when I was like 5.
Do you
and I
remember
went down the pyramids. I absolutely remember it because my mother was too tall for to get inside the pyramid, and so she had to. Yeah, and then I remember riding camels, and then of course, one of the greatest memories is that we were sitting in the Bedouins' abode in the desert, and I was asking questions through the translator, and then the Bedouins offered to buy me. Because I asked them funny questions for like a bunch of camels. Yeah, so, you know, maybe in another future, in another universe, Bobby is a Bedouin.
Bobby's a Bedouin
Allahu
slave.
Akbar.
As they say
in Paris.
You know, Bobby, that's how the Mamluk kingdom got started. Is that the Bedouins bought some witty Slavs, and then they ended up running Egypt. This is not real.
White people running Egypt is a tale as old as time.
So true, so true. But now now Sir Brante has reached about age 7, age 8. Brante, and he is going outside of his house, and now he is going to be a young boy, finally coming into contact with the world for the first time.
Go ahead. Okay.
He's lived in this world for 8 years now. As you grow older, life grows more complex. Milton loves complex. The world of your childhood was limited to your house and family, but now that realm is expanding. It also includes your neighborhood, the nearby houses, the streets of the ancient city of Enizote. A question now looms over you, growing more pressing with each passing year. What will your place be in this vast outside world? Few people in the blessed Arachnean Empire trouble themselves with this question. It is not within a man or woman's power to choose. Their destiny is predetermined by their birth and those who bore them. Calvinism, let's go. The Arachnean Empire is based Calvinism. Milton doesn't even need to do anything. Like, it's already there. And yet
it's falling apart. It is the fall of the Arachnean Empire.
Yes, that's true. And yet your peculiar birth has granted you a choice. Your father is a man of nobility, a worthy example in matters of duty and honor. Your mother is a commoner of lowly estate, humility and patience made flesh. And your sky is ablaze day and night with the light of the shining pillar, the beacon of the clergy. Your back bears the mark of the lash. Will you accept the drudgery and suffering that is the lot of the lowborn for your entire life? Or will you follow in the footsteps of your father and your father's father and fight for the right to serve the empire as a noble of the mantle? Perhaps you will follow the twin gods' word and offer spiritual guidance to others. The answer lies out there in that vast, terrifying world. What awaits you beyond the walls of your home? So, these are a couple of things we can do prior to getting the chapter started. Gloria has a secret. Stefan has a disgrace. The blood tide of the family. You give Nathan an admonition. You meet a girl. You look at the tree. You save a girl.
Look at the tree.
So yeah, so these are what is it? These are different sort of skills, as you can see. Different skills from last time. Last time we were working on our will and our perception and our determination. Now there are other skills that we are building in this chapter: nobility, ingenuity, and spirituality. And these three things will dictate further skills that we start building, more specialized professional skills as we go on. And now of course, you know, in this chapter there will be things like how we're related to people, like how people like us, you know, what's going on in our province, what's going on in the whole wide empire, because our world is expanding. You know, Mr. Bobby, the life of an individual person is kind of like the life of a kingdom. You know, it has its little nascent stages, and then there's a period of expansion, and it's thrown into sort of more than it can handle, right?
I think organisms existed before kingdoms. So I'd say that maybe the kingdom is like the life of a person.
Well, to me, they're one and the same. To me, kingdom and organism, like the first complex organism that existed, which was, you know, I'm a religious man, so I believe, God's kingdom was the first kingdom. It'll also be the last kingdom. But everything, you know, all life is kind of modeled after that. You know, it's all just like a different variation of that sort of concept. Even numbers themselves, even if you look at there are only, so Bobby, there are only, you know this, but there are only 9 numbers. Really. There are only 9 numbers. And that is 1 through 9. Everything else is just like
there's no 0?
0 is a placeholder. There's
you deny the 0?
Yes, I do deny the 0 because there's no such thing as nothing. There is always.
What about chaos? Nothing.
Chaos isn't a thing. It's just like a confusion or corruption or an eroding of stuff. But you know, energy cannot be created or destroyed unless you get up to a certain. There's a theory that at a certain scale, energy can be created or destroyed. But we're getting too much into that. But the reason I bring it up is that the sequence of the numbers from 1 to 9 and back down to 1 is the life of a kingdom. You know, the numbers are increasing in amount, and this is I don't know too much about numerology, but as a matter of fact, the numbers 4 and 5 specifically are the numbers of the kingdom at peace, and 4 is the kingdom at peace. It's a sprawling, expanding kingdom. 5 is the kingdom at war, if I remember this correctly. But anyway. We're getting.
Do you assign like characteristics to your numbers?
Yes, this is what every number has a sort of meaning behind it. You know, one is the unity, it is the birth, it is the beginning of all things. You know, two is a very unstable number. 2 is an extremely unstable number. It's a number of perpetual becoming. It always is either going to fall back down to 1 or it's going to increase up to 3, but it very rarely, it almost never stays as a 2. You know, and then, you know, 4 and 5. And once you get past 5, you kind of leave numbers that are primarily physical and start getting into more metaphysical numbers.
This seems scary to me. You know, that's what I'd say. It's another facet of reality that I think that I would need to explore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a dilettante, Bobby, so I can only give you like the most bare bones basic stuff about this. But anyway, people are roasting me in the chat for my stupid knowledge of numbers, and that's okay. But anyway, we're gonna stop talking. Yeah. We're going to stop talking about numbers, and we're going to start continuing the life of Sir Brante in adolescence. And Bobby, please feel free to interrupt me at any point or say anything you want to say throughout the course of this stream.
No worries.
The family expects more and more of you as you grow up. The teachers and tutors hired by your father keep you on your toes all the time. Your life these days is dedicated to studying for your future, for the future of the Brante family. Your younger brother Nathan keeps growing up too. He can hold a conversation now. You never refuse him when he comes to play, provided you have a bit of free time between your demanding lessons. We're good siblings. It is a rainy day today. Father and mother have gone to a ball, and they left Nathan in your care. You lose track of time over the books in the sitting room, and Nathan goes off alone to splash in the creek. Soon you hear his voice begging you to come outside. He is on the porch sobbing, all covered in dirt. You walk up to him as he continues to bawl. It's all that kid. He pushed me into the ditch and called me names. He said I was a fancy pants fool. I said I'll call my brother. He's still there. You have to go punish him, Paul. I guess I don't know. We're making up voices as we go along.
That's pretty good. Well done.
But
like, he definitely sounds like a very snooty kid.
Nathan points at a lopsided wooden house further down the street where the poorer artisans live. Oh yeah, so the frickin' help has come and beat up my brother. All right, let's go teach them a lesson.
Damn these commoners.
Yeah, so a couple of commoners are just sitting on the porch. Thomas, I've heard it before. Okay. Oh man, this kid basically could kick my ass because he's been helping his dad at the. So child labor law is actually good because if you do child labor with your dad, you're actually better at beating up other kids at school, which means they respect you more.
Well, they call it farm muscle in America.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, kids. I remember kids would just like. I didn't go to a rural high school, but when I went to college with a bunch of rural kids, and they would talk about, you know, they would get off school, go back home, and for the rest of the evening help their, like before school from about 5 a.m. to when they had to leave, they would help at the farm, and then when they get back, they would continue helping at the farm, and that's been how it's been since we settled the country.
Oh yeah, but a lot of times you don't really see that they're not like traditionally strong in the sense of like they got massive muscles. They're very like, what do you call it, dense. Like their muscles are very, very dense. They're like gorillas, you know. They're like gorillas, Joe.
Very. You're right. Very dense muscles, hardened muscles, but not very much grown muscles because they're not eating like the.
Yes, they're not
protein.
eating 10,000 calories a day.
Yeah, basically. And if they were, they would be strong men. And and you could see this even in the Middle Ages. You know, why were knights like these superhuman? Basically, this people talk about super soldiers a lot. Well, knights pretty much were super soldiers if you compare them to your average peasant levy. Like, people don't understand, but like knights were trained for martial, at least in Western Europe. I don't know about Russia. Maybe it was something similar in Russia. But Western knights were trained from about age 7 or 8 was when they begun to be trained in military combat. From right about the age. So
I think you're thinking of archers. Archers were trained from a very, very early age because you need to have a specific sort of muscle developed to be able to pull, what was it, 120 pounds of tension?
Well, that was the same for archers as well in England. They would practice for 2 hours every week after church. But knights were different. Knights were like, and I mean knights in like the professional military caste of each kingdom. They were trained from about age 7 or 8 in, hand-to-hand combat, in sword play, in horseback riding. They would be swimming. They would learn how to start wearing armor, fitting armor. They would squire to lords to sort of, learn how martial combat was done. And really, as time went on, because they had access to things like poultry, specifically poultry was the big difference maker, because they would have eggs every morning, and then they would have chicken, and they would have pork and beef and all of these other like meats and cheeses that were very, very protein rich. Most of the peasants, while they were working harder and hardening their muscles more than the lords were, they were only really eating grain, and like meat was kind of a more rarity thing for them. So like you were talking about, like they had hardened muscles, but they were not very much grown. The nobles, the knights, were also working hard, but they were growing their muscles. They were growing their muscles, and they were learning how to wear this armor that was first chainmail, and then like sort of patchwork plate, and then eventually full plate. And
I think when we think about strongmen, you could definitely point at the Russian tradition of fist fighting. It sounds funny. It sounds like, the Russian tradition of fist fight, but it's like literally called like that. Like, I don't remember the precise word, but the whole boxing thing. Yeah, and if you look at the traditional paintings of the bogatyrs, the men, the warriors of God, because there's the cognate of God, Bog, there, and I mean they all look like bodybuilders. They don't look like like I don't know, thin knights. Something. But then again, maybe modern wrestlers look like bogaters.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, and this is how you get stories of like knights taking on maybe like 11, 12 peasants in the middle of a battle and just kind of slicing through them extremely easily because their muscles are not built for it, and they don't have the ease of martial combat like knights did. And so this is like people talk about super soldiers. Really, the key to that was the access of protein.
I mean, well, look, if we're talking about medieval times or like the Dark Ages or like this period of cooling off where people needed to adapt biologically to the technology that they have developed and to the cybernetics that they have developed. I mean, we're talking about biopunk here. People, and this was an entirely different breed of people, the knights and the peasants. They were like, I don't know, they were like a race, basically. Because they were all bred under kind of natural scientist conditions. When people talk about like, oh, well, the man is a natural scientist because he like explores everything and he writes everything down. He's very kind of interested in everything. But I mean, there's other things but scientists. There's like priests, and there's definitely natural priests. There's Brian Turnipseed, after all.
That is true. Well,
and in this case, it's not just like, if we talk about protein today, they didn't know like what protein was.
Yeah.
They knew that a combination of things made you this enormous mountain of flesh that could just eat everything and like kill and rend and cleave and so on. And there was a completely different way of understanding the world. And time, time was different too for them. And I suspect that you can talk about this with Cringewalker, because he's done some research, and the young Earth theory might not be as stupid as you have once thought it was.
That's true. But anyway, let's get back to this. So Thomas Guerrero, which literally means warrior or fighter, he's like, yeah, he doesn't like us rich boys because we were shit talking his house. Well, if he didn't want us to shit talk his house, maybe he shouldn't have been born in a shitty house. But anyway,
maybe he should have made the house better.
Yeah, maybe. But maybe next time he'll dress normal and stop picking fights with people who can throw him in the mud. So true. My little brother's writing checks with his mouth that his ass can't cash. But I don't like him because he came to my brother.
Yeah, go ahead, go. Defend the brother.
So, what would Milton do? What would Milton do?
You should copyright that and then stick it on the back of your truck.
What would Milton do, ladies and gentlemen? Well, if we're doing lotless, this would be the meta path to go down. But unfortunately, I can't pick this one because
I think we should defend our brother. I mean, honor is an important thing in Milton's thing. Milton's
that's
book.
true.
And so
That's
I mean, he
true.
went blind at the end. He needed to rely on people to write down his words.
His daughters specifically, he was dictating to them. The theory is that, and Milton says this in the poem. He says that God blinded him as a sort of blessing so that he would no longer be taken in by the glittering illusion that was Lucifer. Because for the first 3 books of Paradise Lost, Lucifer is the hero. He very much is. But then after that, you kind of start seeing him for what he... Say again?
He's the main character, but he's clearly like, whatever... if something... He says it's like one of his first lines that if God gives us something good, then I will pervert it in like, to make crooked from everything good. Something like that. Like he talks to all these demons, he summons all these demons. I don't know about a hero. I mean, protagonist. I think he meant protagonist.
Well, if you ask me, there's no difference between a hero and a protagonist, at least in a literary sense. But you know what? You're fair enough, Bobby. Milton very much would defend his family. So we're going to give Thomas a beating.
Punch, 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 punch.
Okay, we're fighting. And I surprise him, but you know his skill kind of shows itself. And it's his dad. Uh-oh, we're running away. We don't want to get hit. And we're all chilling in the back alley. He's like, I'm gonna get beaten anyway. But damn, dude, you're like what? You're like 8, and your dad hits you, and you're just totally like okay with it. You're like, whatever. I'll get beaten.
Well, yeah, because like when you're small, your parents don't beat you when you like past the age of 16 or something.
Yeah,
they used to beat you when you're a little kid. Did your parents beat you, Paul?
Not like in the sense like full fists were thrown at me, but I got hit with the belt plenty of times. I got hit with fly swatters and spoons and and one time I was playing Xbox when I shouldn't have been, and my father ran over and toppled my gaming chair and kind of pinned me up against the wall using my gaming chair, kind of like snarling like a mad dog at me. I'm sure something else was going on. But no, in the West, at least that I've found, except for like rural places, parents aren't like as hands-on as they are in other places, but they are very good at having the dread, at like making you think you're gonna get beaten, which it could be arguable that that whether or not that's more successful than actually beating someone. But that's kind of I wasn't at all abused or anything like that, but I was very much disciplined. I think I had the perfect balance of just enough physical pain and just enough dread to kind of point me the right way.
Yeah, I mean, everyone got hit with a belt at my Russian school. I was just like, I mean, my mother was born in the 70s, and she told me, like, during her school in the 80s, corporal punishment was ubiquitous.
Yeah.
In
Well, that's a different world too. I grew up in a different world from my parents, or you did, or everyone else did. In many ways, I grew up in probably the most peaceful, wealthy place in the United States, which was Northern Virginia. Literally the imperial heartland. So maybe I didn't get it the way other people did. But anyway.
So now it's an empire.
I mean, look, it's an empire. It's an empire when I want it to be, and it's every single state that has ever existed is an empire. That's just how it is. Every single state is an empire, whether it calls itself a republic or whatever.
Is a man an empire unto himself or unto the world?
I think both, because you don't have total dominion over your own mind, and so you have your own this is what they call inland empire. You have your own, they even made a movie about it. I've never watched it, but you have your own, and I know that's in Disco Elysium, which I played a little bit and I thought it was stupid. No, yeah, you don't have total dominion over your own inner self, so you're trying to expand and conquer your inner self while simultaneously trying to expand and conquer your outer world. And so, yeah, like every man is an empire. This is true. Every man is an empire. Every business is an empire. Every, household estate is an empire. Every town is an empire. They're all king. And an empire is just another way of saying a kingdom. They're just a place where a certain order is instituted. And anyway,
well, some people just go with the flow. Some people never have to fight battles. Like my grandparents, to them life was just getting better and better and better each year. And they died right as the Ukrainian war started. pretty much. So, like, they lived, they started from Nazi Germany, as in, like, my grandmother's earliest memories are her hiding from the Nazis in Kiev. And and then after that, it's just, like, it's kind of great. Like, it was getting better each year. They were getting more and more goodies from the Soviet Union, big apartment. They never had to face any, like, internal challenges. My granddad just kind of shut down after his wife, my grandmother, became the tyrant of the house. So, like, I don't know. I think there's a difference between, like, a kingdom, a place that has a king that rules over specific people, and an empire who, like, expands and who attacks. Because, well, we talked about this in the chat and with you, but Americans do really believe in this whole thing of the dark forest, that everyone's a hunter, and you, like, you have to prepare for war. Prepare for war. If you want peace, prepare for war. But no, I don't know if that's the same thing in Russia. Like, I don't think that it's always been like that. There's been definitely a time when people were just, like, doing things, not just, like, preparing for war constantly.
Fair enough, but I mean, we'll get into that probably more. But speaking of empires, here's the map of the empire we're in, and there's all these little cities, the majority of which you will never visit. All these little provinces. I'm not going to read them all right now, but this is our province, and the political structuring of it right now, and all this other stuff. But anyway, Thomas tells us that fighting's the only way to prove you're worth anything, and I am inclined to agree with him, but then again, I'm a soldier at heart, so some people may disagree.
Very interesting. Yeah. Sounds good. Go ahead.
Now we're in agreement. We're the oligarchy against we're the high. We are the high versus the middle. That is our. What was it? We're the low versus the middle. That is our younger brothers, and our parents are the high. We're gonna make sure that we're an oligarchy, ensuring our brothers won't snitch.
Let's see. Yeah, there's going to be a very interesting thing soon.
Yeah, so we made friends with Thomas, and now we've got some nobility. Okay, excellent, great, lovely. All right.
There was a guy that wrote a green text on 4chan, how he started. Have you ever played Persona?
I have not.
Well, in it you have, like, social stats for each person. Like, how close are you with this person? What does he let you do? And if you have a high enough stat, you can, like, invite them to somewhere. Well, he started doing the same thing for himself in real life, and he was like, "Oh man, like, this is helping me. I keep track of everyone's social ties with me." And I was thinking, man, imagine if someone, like, played this game, Sir Brante, and then just started writing out his life stats like they are in the game. Starting with, like, the most basic stuff, and then just like, I'm leveling up determination now. I'm getting into fights with homeless people.
I think that would actually make it really cool, and it would make the world more medieval. But anyway, me and Thomas are being young pervs and watching girls do laundry in the yard. Uh-oh. Oh, yep. Now I'm chatting her up. I really am a. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. She's running away. She falls over. Oh no. Oh no.
She love the calories here.
The riders are coming for it. They're not gonna stop. They're not gonna stop. All right. Unfortunately, fortunately, Bobby, I'm gonna have to do this. I'm just gonna have to do this. It's just the most.
Man, You know who she is.
I do know who she is.
Milton senses, with his whole being. He fucking knows there's something wrong there. He's like, oof. The darkness.
Well,
it's the thug shaker. It's coming from that girl over there.
Well, Milton,
do what you gotta do, man.
Evil be thou my good. And I shield her, and yep, I just got fucking murked by a bunch of horses. The last thing you remember is the sound of your own skull caving. Oh, this is not supposed to happen.
True.
Game glitch.
As a kid.
Let's go. You fall into a pain that embraces you. You feel light, free. There are no restraints. Just a warm glow that envelops you in its secure embrace. The waves carry you. Their touch is soft. They delicately enshroud what was once your body. It is a feeling unlike anything you have ever experienced before. Something absolute and complete. You touch something greater. The reason behind everything. The reason for your very existence. You were sculpted from this light. It was the first thing you ever felt. A boundless and sincere unity of the diverse. Your beginning was a spark that cast this light in all directions, and now you are here again, one with the beginning of everything. The light gleaming from you resembles the light of the shining pillar. You still see it in the north, as always. The waves of light carry you to two figures. The elder is nearest. He is ready to accept you. He is quiet, wise, kind, and pure. The younger waits further back. You do not know what he is yet. The waves pause at the elder's feet. He leans over you and plants a feather-like kiss on your forehead. The kiss spreads all over you. You are filled with unparalleled delight and bliss. You exist! You are unique! There is no one else like you. They know this, and they love you. You will never be alone. You are a part of them, a part of your family, a part of this universe. The twin gods will never leave you. They watch over you constantly. The elder softly touches you as you lie spread out amongst the waves, sending you further down the torrent of light. You float on to the top of the silver tree's spreading crown. The closer you get to the silver tree, the heavier you become. The waves draw you down along its trunk, but you do not wish to part with the warmth and softness, with the love. You turn around. The elder is still watching you. He nods. All is as it should be. Base Calvinism. All is as it should be. Go. Your time has not yet come. You must return to the world now. As you tumble down towards your body, you comprehend the true meaning of your lesser death and the divine love that has been revealed to you. Love exists not only in the hereafter, it is present in the entire design of the twins that is the origin of all life in this world. What is the manifestation of love in your mortal life?
This is definitely more of an orthodox approach to religion. It's what do they call it? The church, the church of love, instead of the church of you call it suffering, the Catholic one, where it's very positive. I think this is the most positive I've ever seen religion represented in a video game ever.
Yeah, that's true. I've noticed that. Like, this was the one game I've ever played that, like, you've got, like, all of the priests seem like, even some of the more, like, zealous ones seem like they've got a consistency to what they're doing. And, you can talk to priests like you're a rational person. But, but this choice we have here as to what is the manifestation of this love in our life, it doesn't really have any binding on the game. It's just, as you said, it's a continual conversation with the devs. What do you think Milton thinks love is in his life?
What is love to an Englishman that is writing? And it's probably something to do with language, really, with like laws, and with the ordering of everything. I think that, like, even if it's you're kind of breaking the order or you're questioning the order, you're still like within this matrix of numbers, I guess. The highs and the lows of belief. And so in this case, it's like. It's what AA says. This is why AA is very, very British, because he says culture comes from law. of course, I as a Russian strongly disagree with that. But you kind of understand that it comes from like written things that have a magic property to them.
Well, and that's the that's the English sort of worldview. To us, language is magic. To us, we're all like practitioners of magic. Who cast spells every day with our voices in order to perform things. Like all of the English sciences and things like accounting, things like taking out loans, credit. When I learned how to do a balance sheet, when I learned how to actually do proper accounting, I realized it really was alchemy. You can add anything to that and just magically increase your own net worth. That's why there was a bot that was going on Twitter recently that was like a hack bot, but it was giving you a monetary value for your Twitter account, and I did it. And I, of course, someone saved me from keeping it, and I'm sure it got my data anyway. But I put the monetary value of my Twitter account on my balance sheet because that's the amazingness of alchemy, and that's kind of why money is so important to the sort of English worldviews, because it's like this font of mana or energy that you can draw from to perform. But I'm maybe waxing poetic a little bit about it, but in Russia it does seem a little bit different. It does not seem like you think about it the same way.
Linguistics, what is it? Comparisons are deceiving.
Yeah.
Linguistics are deceiving. Because if you say something and if you're convinced about something, even like magic doesn't always work. That's the one thing. It's not like reliable. It can work, and it definitely does work. But especially with language, like you can really convince people of a lot of stuff. You can like create whole universes. You can look at Western women, or I don't know, just in general women today, that like at 40 have the one someday tag on their Bumble account. It's like, oh, do you want kids? Yeah, one someday. And like there's a lot of that stuff that, and they're not like, it's not entirely wrong to say what you want and for that to act like as an incantation. But it's like, man, it can really fuck you over, because it's hard to satiate hunger with words, for example. I mean, there's probably like rituals for it, and they probably work, but I don't know, like, does Evelyn, in his whole books of magic, ever have an incantation of satiety, to satiate your hunger? And I want a burger, what do I have to do? What do I have to draw on my chest, What kind of version must I sacrifice? And I don't know. I think that there are certain things that are maybe so basic that it's difficult to make magic work on them.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to show. And so that's why, like, I feel very uncomfortable with this whole idea that culture comes from law, because there's the big C culture, like the sacred symbols, the science of symbols, semiotics. A lot of that stuff doesn't come from law today. It may come from like tribal law, but then again, that's not law as we see now. When you say culture comes from law doesn't have the same form throughout the years.
Yeah. And that's how English common law is exactly meant to be. It's meant to not take the same form over years. English common law is meant to be perpetually changing. New precedent, new case. Nothing is ever really, really set in stone. There's like indications and inclinations you can get from cases that have been made. But you are correct. And this is different from like Napoleonic law. Or even, I don't know what the Russian code is called. Is the Russian code is based off of the laws of Justinian, correct?
Honestly, my dad constantly laments the Russian law, and
maybe it's an oxymoron.
I don't know.
The Russian law.
I don't know, the Russian law. It's difficult to think about. I mean, a lot of, like, if you think far enough, it was like pirate law. It was like closer to what Americans have, frontier justice.
Yeah.
You know,
Except a
and
lot more grimdark.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've never thought about grim darkness coming from Russians. You know, it's not the Russians that were grim dark first. It was the Germans. You know, the Germans got put in Warhammer 40,000, and then there were the French. And Russia is just like one of the DLCs and whatnot, and they're way up in the north, and they've got their own Big Bear.
Why do you think the Germans were in grimdark though? They were fighting massive hordes of Slavs, and then massive hordes of Mongols, and then massive hordes of Slavs again, and then they were surrounded on all sides by pagans.
No, they were fighting Vikings. They weren't fighting the Russians. They were fighting Chaos hordes.
They were
Chaos
fighting
hordes.
The Chaos Hordes were the Magyars. Yeah, they were fighting the Magyars, and who were just absolutely they're seemingly unstoppable. And then they were fighting. Yeah, you were right. Then they were fighting the Vikings and the Danes who were coming down from the north, and then they were fighting the pagans up in Pomerania and the Baltic states, and then they were fighting the massive hordes of Slavs, and basically it was just nothing but fighting for them. Like they were surrounded, and arguably when the if you read about what happened to the Germanic tribes when they were being pushed westward at the fall of the Roman Empire, they were all living in like modern day Ukraine and Poland and places like that. Like they didn't leave of their own accord. They were pushed out. Like people talk about the Huns. Well, the Huns were going west, and they were driving all of these other tribes before them, who were then driving the Germanics before them, who were then forced to kind of move westward. And so yeah, it really just has been like grim dark since the Germanic migrations, and that's probably why the Germans themselves have such this harsh view of existence, is that especially the Prussian Germans, the Bavarian Germans, the Southern Germans are a lot more settled and a lot more calm because they found their sort of mountain home that's easily defensible and is close enough to the Mediterranean that they can go down and get good weather and all that. So that's why they tend to be a lot more calm. But like the Prussians, man, they had because their terrain was flat and undefendable, they themselves had to become the impassable terrain. And that's why they are so, and Spengler talks about this in Prussianism and Socialism, that's why they're just so harsh of a people, that sort of Teutonic Knight spirit, because they were sort of the last bastion that kept the rest of the North European plain safe from the hordes of the East, because if they fell, then it was just easy pickings. But I digress. Bobby, I'm going to get myself another cup of coffee, and I'm going to think over which of these options match what you talk about. Culture.
I would say Empire. Empire.
Could you not say Lot too?
Well, Lot is more of a like higher thing. I think it's without words. Lot. Because if had you not had a word for Lot, it would still exist. In fact, in as we know, it's then again, if it's in Russian, it's weird, because in Russian the lot would be like your work, like stuff you do, and I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. It's between lot and empire. I'd say empire.
Well, I'm gonna get a cup of coffee, and then we're gonna test our choice. All right, Mr. Bobby, I'm back. Empire.
No, okay, Empire. Go ahead. Because Empire means more than just a specific place somewhere.
Yeah,
You know.
an empire is kind of like, I guess I could see why you're different, why you think it's different from a kingdom. It's kind of this, an empire is a sort of imposition of will, which is always an artificial action. Any imposition of will is an artificial action. Because, you know, if the world is set up to be organic, and like if you just don't think with this perpetual motion machine, everything is done the way it was intended. But anytime you try to impose will, that's an act of empire, and it's an act of, which I guess is what law is trying to do. It's trying to impose a certain will on the world. But a sudden comprehension of the love with which the entire world is imbued illuminates your mind. But then it fades away and vanishes. You regain the sensation of your flesh. It is heavy and unwieldy. It lacks that lightness, that light. It is a burden. It is smothering you. You gasp for air. Your chest expands painfully. You feel as though your lungs are about to burst. The stagnant odor of the crypt fills them, revolting, but so real. You are back. Then you can feel again. You sense your body, head, arms, and legs. The light fades around you, obedient before a will that is stronger than you. You return to the world. Such is the law of the twins. You will return to the world until the time of your true death, and in this world you will have a body with which to feel pain and suffering and pleasure. You smell a sickly, moist odor. You open your eyes and see the figures of mother and father in the gloom of the family crypt, speaking to each other quietly. They stop as soon as they hear you gasp. Mother runs to you and locks you in an embrace as father wraps you in his cloak. Neither of them says a word as they lead you out to the surface and back home. You've met a terrible end, my son. You were trampled by those horses. Don't be so... Say again?
No, it's fine. It's just my dog.
Oh, you're all good. Don't be so careless ever again. The lives you were given by the twin gods are not to be wasted so recklessly. You would be punished for this, but the twins have already meted out their punishment. You tremble, your steps unsteady as you learn how to move again. Your body is eerily smooth, fresh and renewed. Even the recent scars and scratches are all gone. But there is something new on it, a fresh black mark, a reminder of your lesser death beneath those hooves. Remember that, by the twins' mercy, we are given enough time in this world. Should you die before your time, you will be brought back by their grace. For 3 times they will rescue you from a terrible fate, but the 4th death is the true and final for all. Every loss of a life we were granted at our birth is a heavy blow to us, but the gods told us not to mourn a lesser death, and so we will humbly accept this and move on. See, your body has been reborn anew with all your wounds healed. Do not mourn the loss of life, my son, but thank the twin gods for their justice. Do not speak of this, and do not ever play by the road again if you wish to keep on living. You cautiously go back outside the next day. Children from the neighborhood surround you. They all saw you get trampled, and now they ask you the same question. What was it like to die? Tomas rescues you from their pestering. He pushes the motley crew aside, hugs you, and pats you on the back. Look at you, buddy. You gave an entire life to keep a girl safe. Yes, so true. White knight simp Milton. Then you see Sophia. She is standing nearby, shyly working up the courage to walk over to you. Soon she finally approaches you and begins speaking rapidly. She's the woman. I'm not going to read this. She's a woman. Well, she likes me now. Yeah. She's slightly indifferent to me. I gave my fucking life for you, so now she's slightly indifferent to me. Okay.
Well, it shall be revealed why she is that way. Eventually, it's the foreshadowing. Actually, that's pretty good foreshadowing. It's foreshadowing it through like game mechanics instead of just telling you that like, oh, you see something with her. No, you give one of like the 3 most valuable things in your life, or like mechanically, and she just slightly likes you.
Yep. Well, and here's the thing. Well, the thing is, here's the other thing. Like, it is a very valuable thing in this game because the choices, there are only a couple of choices in this game you can make to sacrifice one of your lives.
And they accelerate.
Yeah, they do, because you can see it boosted all of our stats at the cost of some of our willpower. And mechanically, these are the best decisions to make, especially if you especially early on, because the fact that it builds.
Yeah, but eventually, the frequency and the kind of danger rises exponentially.
Exactly.
You might want to save up, like, for the rest. But I mean, it's interesting. Like you die many times during your life. A coward dies 1,000 deaths. Well, here everyone dies 4 deaths. or sometimes one, and we'll see
Sometimes
it later.
one, depending on what happens.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sophia has
Continue.
disappeared, and now I'm 10. You know, well, what is it? Yeah, so there was a rebellion in this city that this duke using magic for, but magic isn't real. Since then, the entire province has lain barren, tormented by cold and scorching winds. All fertile land in Magra is bought elsewhere and brought here by an endless caravan of carts and carriages. So basically, this province is kind of like, I was talking about Brandenburg, Prussia earlier. This is kind of like Prussia. This province is that, you know, in this province, none of us can really farm, so we become skilled at other things to buy food.
Well, you know, it's not that they can't farm, or they aren't farmers because they can't farm. There's going to be an explanation of why they can't farm.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and the explanation is that the magic left all the land barren. You know, that was earlier in this. That was like a couple of pages ago. But yeah, there was a rebellion of a duke named Char Milandus who used magic, and he was killed, and the magic left the soil barren forever. So now it's kind of like a Prussia thing. But this thing called gunpowder is now being used by the miners to mine better. I wonder if anything else will be used by this. Oh no, big explosion.
Gunpowder is spooky. How did the gun culture, like the gunko pops thing, start? Because it makes sense that, you know, frontier justice people had a gun to help them. But what happens now is that people are just collecting guns and like shooting them out in their backyard. But, you know, Baba went to town and, always brags about his gun and never pulls the trigger. Stuff. Like, at some point, it turned from, like, the gun necessity to, well, necessity hasn't passed away, so, you know, there's still, like, self-defense cases, but it just became this, exaggerated version of it,
well,
and, like, very, very useless.
You could argue it started as early as the closing of the Wild West, you know, with everyone with this big craze for revolvers and repeaters. If you look at like old Sears catalogs in the United States at about the turn of the century, from 1899 to 1900, there was huge demand for like Colt peacemakers, Colt Army revolvers, repeating rifles, native hatchets. Whether they were fake or real, no one really cared, because there was this huge boom and craze of like Western stuff, because everyone wanted to feel like they were a part of the closing of the Great Frontier, and everyone knew that the Great Frontier was kind of closing. It was not at all like a silent thing. Like, everyone knew, oh, this period of our history has ended, and we all have to, and everyone was kind of rushing in to be the last, you know, including President Teddy Roosevelt, who bought land up in Montana, I think. It was either Montana or North Dakota. I think it was North Dakota, actually. He had a ranch up there, and he was there for about a year. But, you know, yeah, like, and I guess you could say that that's about where it started, because, you know, America had all this newfound wealth. It was very much industrializing. People were getting healthier, happier, more money. And there was no real need for everyone to have a gun anymore. There was no, like, it wasn't like in old 1860, even like old 1860 times, where, you know, everyone had guns in the South because, you know, the slaves could revolt at any time, and every able-bodied white man needed to be able to be mustered to put down a possible slave revolt. That's why the South, by the way, during the Civil War, had such a deep military tradition, not just in its officers, but in its populace. Because
the vast majority of lynchings were because of cattle theft.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. But yeah, Bobby, like, the slaves were freed, and so, you know, slave revolts weren't really a thing, and, you know, law enforcement started to become more institutionalized. You start to see police departments in the industrial age, and, you know, I think really what we have today is just kind of like the modern outgrowth of that. Is it's like everyone wants their AR, and everyone, you know, basically is it's like you've given them license to own firearms, which is one of the founding, whether you like it or not, the ownership of firearms is a foundational aspect of, I don't know about English society, but very much American society. And the thing is that is because of, it was a frontier justice society, but now that the frontier really is closed, everyone kind of, there's nothing left for it. So, it's now just become another hobby, and people will, like me personally, I own a couple of,
Yeah.
But
the one gun that I would love to own is a Mitrace Unica.
Okay.
The Italian auto revolver that
sir.
has a lower bore axis. It's the one from Ghost in the Shell. Oh man, what a gun! Beautiful. That's the only one I want. And the guy that made it, he was making washing machines. So
Gotcha. Well, anyway,
let's go ahead.
Yeah, so there was a huge explosion in the city, and a bunch of people were wounded. And my father's telling us, the mine caved in, and a bunch of gunpowder went off, and Count El Velasco, who owns the mines, wanted them to start mining the vein before they were ready. Some of the workers weren't even reborn. Perhaps the twins thought their final time had come. The prefecture has been inundated with complaints from families. So basically, the nobles are like, "You stupid peasants! You blow up the mines, and I don't care if you die." But basically, father's like, he's a sensible nobleman. He's like, hey, look, this tool is dangerous, but it can still work. The reason that everyone died was because the noble was stupid and was like telling people to blow it up before it was ready. And so you can see there's growing sort of discontent. Yeah, so like order has gone down, but the wealth has gone up because we have gunpowder and we can pull more shit out of the ground. Oh, Stefan's coming back.
Yep.
And we're all what is it? Here comes grandfather, but he's an older man. But here comes Stefan, who's also an older man. Augustin Elborn, the other.
Stefan looks like a Chad, but
he does.
There's something about this art style. There's an American cartoonist named Robert R. Crumb.
Yes.
That would
Felix,
draw, and
Felix the cat,
I look at these pictures, and especially the ones with women, and I just think Robert R. Crumb. I think these are his women, these are his men. Look at the arms, especially. They're puffy. They're like puffy, and there's something with their faces. They all look very masculine. That's the thing. Everyone looks very masculine. Maybe besides your sister, but everyone really. It's not. Despite it being made by Russians, I don't know if this is a Russian art style.
No, it's probably not. Because the Russian art style I have found is pretty much Orthodox icons. That's the closest thing I could say to the Russian art, at least how they draw people, is some version of the icons.
If you look at the Novgorod child, Orfim, that threw his birch bark drawings into the peat bogs, and then they unearthed him, he draws like a Japanese child of today, basically. Like, the faces, they are identical. That's how. And, there emerges an interesting conundrum. Like, were the Japanese the ones to adopt Russian culture? Did Russia adopt Japanese culture? I don't know. I think, especially, the word for caviar in Russian is ikra. But in Japanese it is ikura. And my dad says that it was originally a Russian word because of the prevalence of caviar-bearing fish in Russia. Beluga caviar, best in the world, fucking got annihilated during the Soviet Union. You have myths about the ivory-billed woodpeckers. Russians have myths about 30-meter-long beluga fish that carry their caviar for like 40 years and like after that, the caviar is as big as a marble, and then they basically live for like 300, 400 years or something. So
big fish myths, yes. Anyway, we are meeting Agustin El Borne, who is our father's boss, basically. The archetypal nobleman, the one who hasn't forgotten what his purpose is. But Stefan is back, and Granddad is basically like, no, don't show any. We noblemen oughtn't to put our emotions on the public display, father. Not even after like. So basically, Stefan is now a douchebag.
He just wants to prove himself to the granddad, and the granddad,
Giga Chad grandpa.
He's a bad dude. He's a bad hombre. So let's go ahead.
Yeah, basically he's like, oh, I'm a nobleman now, and he's talking to his family as though they are not family. Of course, Augustin is a perfect example of noblesse oblige. He is complimenting, the what is it? He's like, womanly care always does a child good, no matter the estate, which is true. And and here's the thing, like the character of El Borne, he's always he is particularly, his character is the reason why I choose the noble arc every time, because he's an example of what nobility should be. He is very much aware of his position, but he doesn't lord it over people because it's just a matter of fact to him. And as a matter of fact, he goes to, because he's in his position, he extends more effort to make everyone feel that they are taken care of, complimented, all this other stuff. Grandfather and... Go ahead.
He projects weakness. He doesn't have that, I guess, bitterness of suffering in him. Mm-hmm. He's very jovial. He of course, and this is a big problem. This is one of the greatest, this is one of the things that you just learn if you are even a little bit noble. You cannot behave with people of lower class as if they are your own class. They will not like that. They might not realize that's what's happening, but they expect something different from you. Mm-hmm. Augustine here is under this impression that we should treat them as as we treat our betters or our equals. But they don't want to be your equals. They don't want to be your betters. They A, want to serve, and B, they want to engage in very simple pleasures. And if you take it away from them by behaving as if that's not what they want, well, it's just shit. You're kind of abusing these people. You're abusing them more than if you would have abused them physically, because the physical abuse lasts, a few seconds for them. But this stuff fucking hurts them, because you point at them and you say, hey, you are not good. You're too good for engaging in the things you love. True. Man, imagine if someone would come up to your wife, to you and your wife, and then tell you, what is it? You are too good for your wife.
Yeah, I know. I would just kind of look at them like, what are you talking about? But yeah, no, I understand that, and I guess here's the thing: both of our reactions to El Borne betray our cultural origins, because maybe it's because I don't see myself as a commoner and I like El Borne. I guess it's kind of like, what is it? You ever seen Master and Commander?
You know what? No, I gotta watch it.
Well, there's a scene in Master and Commander where there's the new first mate who's going around to all of the crewmen, and he's like, hey, how are you? I want to be your friend. Da, da, da. And he's an officer, but the captain sees this, and he's like, and the two crewmen are kind of looking like, who is this motherfucker? And they think he's weak. And so the captain sees this, the older, more seasoned officer, and he's like, take both of these men and lock them up to the mast. Bring out that cat of nine tails. Start whipping them. Basically he's got to do that. He's got to abuse them to remind them, oh no, I am still in charge. And And he takes the first mate aside. And he's like, "Hey, listen, these guys, they don't want to be your friend. They will think you are weak. You have to constantly hold this sort of lordly authority over them, otherwise they will mutiny." And that's kind of the same thing here. So I can see where you're coming from with that. And I guess maybe, I don't want to spoil later on in the game, but I guess you can see that sort of weakness that El Borne has, especially when things start getting a little bit more heated. He's always the calm hand, the reconciliatory approach, but at the same time, there is a sort of concept of noblesse oblige. The carrot and the stick need to be
Yes,
given together.
you should not be abusive to people who just want to serve you.
Exactly. It's like you don't beat your dog if you come home and you see it's pissed everywhere or whatever, because it won't know why you're beating it. It literally will not know.
Yeah. You have to be very, very. You have to actually like emulate it pissing on something and then punish it during the act, or you have to like reward it. And it's there's a logic behind it. But if you just know how this works, you can train dogs like it's the easiest thing in the world, because it's biopunk.
Exactly. Well, anyway, I mean, and here's what's going on. So yeah, you can see Giga Chad Grandpa is like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
But so basically, what is it? Stefan was born of this dude's sister. So Stefan is technically his nephew, because our father's first marriage was to his boss's sister, basically. And I mean, he's talking to like general truths and all of that. Now he's praising my father, which is I guess a lot more acceptable. Uh-oh. And he's about to say, "Oh, maybe even these sons could eventually become nobles of the..." And now Giga Chad Grandpa is,
Hey, he's getting a little bit irate.
Because the
temperature
servant
is going
fucked
up.
And now he's sending the servants out of the room. Uh-oh. Oh, no. There are enough commoners at this table to keep us served with food and drink.
Now you'll have to choose.
Oh, no. Damn. What
would Milton do? A game for children and grown-ups.
He wouldn't. Honestly, I think he would do this. I really do think.
What do you think?
Milton, I get the feeling Milton was actually very diligent and self-sacrificing,
Well, he did sacrifice his sight, apparently.
So yeah, in all honesty, I think he would join.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, in a way, this actually infuriates grandfather too. I think that because he wanted to, to denigrate the sister, right? He wanted to denigrate her. He wanted to denigrate the mother, and he's not. I don't think he's as angry at you just because you're a man. You can. He was. Sir Gregor was also born a commoner, but then he became a noble through valiant deeds, right?
Exactly. And plus, and that means he's kind of forgotten where he came from, which always happens.
True. But maybe he has had to forget it, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to transform.
Maintain his status. Yeah, which is fair enough. But and I guess maybe he's so, because he knows what he would go back to if he does forget it, and he does not want to go back to that. But I mean, the thing is too, I like that scene because we're kind of humiliating our own nobles by being better servants than they are nobles. With that scene, it's like you do not deserve having servants this loyal to you. And it's kind of what is it? It's like It's like you humiliate a very bad boss by being his best worker and doing everything to far further than he expects you to do it. Basically, you can outwork even his capacity to order you to work, and that humiliates him more than anything else. It's sort of like playing the game so well that, like, you know,
you have to be careful with that, though, because sometimes the boss might want you to play that game by his rules, and he can like imitate anger. You see this in the what is it, like reverse psychology? You see it in SpongeBob.
Yeah.
I mean that's like the common in a lot of cartoons. There's like an episode where they engage in like opposite day and they like try reverse psychology, and it always ends in a specific moral lesson that, like, well, it's there's like it's not a get out of jail free card, and that the old way to do it, where it's like modulating and you're constantly facing these challenges that you have to invent complex systems to overcome, that's better, even if it's more work.
That's true.
And yeah, you could see it, in fact, in this dinner scene, you could see that in a way both Gregor and Augustine have this idea that the lot of the peasants is kind of higher than it is, it's like the whole thing with democracy. It's like, man, like, you gotta vote for our Goyslaw politician, and like, what are you doing? Why are you tilling in the fields? Why aren't you at the university studying? Or the thing that's asked of the breakfast havers in America, where it's like, you should not murder people wantonly. You should not, commit horrible acts of violence. You should not steal from the store. And of course, to us, like, it all makes sense because, well, that's our civilization. But like, definitely not to them. To them, it's like cruelty,
Yeah.
I want to, and that's what they've been doing. And like, if you want them to have their peak of civilization, this is where AA is coming into play, because I think that he's right. Is that there is a part of America that was made specifically for the institution of slavery at the peak of hostile DC Enderman achievement.
Well,
basically.
yeah, and in essence, before we keep going in this game, in essence, like, if you all go to the Old Glory Club Substack and read my my most recent article on there, which was about Bacon's Rebellion, you'll see that the system of slavery predated African slaves within the American South. The first shipload of African slaves arrived in 1619, but African slaves didn't become like the economic norm. They were like this. Think of African slaves the way you think of AI right now. They were kind of a form of automation. They were automating mass plantation labor. You talk about biopunk, Bobby. Well, this is biopunk. Prior to African slaves, most of the labor, because mass plantation labor, especially in the Virginia colony, which is kind of like the laboratory test for what the rest of the South would look like, was tobacco cultivation. And that's why the American money is green, is because tobacco leaves are green, and there's still tobacco leaves on American money. But tobacco is a very labor-intensive crop. I picked it for a month, and it sucks. It absolutely sucks, because tobacco has a 13...
Do you get high when you pick it for a long time?
You can actually get nicotine poisoning if you pick it without gloves. So you can very much, and also there's a very old form of curing it, because once you pick it, you have to cure it, you have to dry it out, called fire curing. And you hang up basically the tobacco over a fire in what's called the drying barn. And I've smelled one of those catch fire before. It does not smell good, but it does make you high. But hey, Bobby, I can barely hear you right now.
Oh, sorry. I just went outside for a second. If you get like real tobacco or like pipe tobacco, and then you like inhale a lot of it, especially if you've got a lot of tolerance so you don't fucking vomit, you can get pretty fucking high. And like the Indians, like the descriptions of the Indians and what they were doing.
Oh yeah. Well, and even to this day, all pipe tobacco still pretty much comes from Virginia. It's either Virginia or English tobacco. That's the pipe. But anyway, but tobacco was very much the hottest commodity in Europe for a very long time because European people like drugs. That's just how it is. We love Euros.
Oh, yeah.
Euros love fucking drugs. All right.
It is pretty, if you look at the history of tobacco, it's very, very interesting that you have this kind of exploration of it, this almanac of like, oh, this is tobacco, this is my like manual of tobacco, what is it? And then the next mention of it is just a sailor already smoking it somewhere in Europe with a pipe. Like it's a fucking rocket, thermonuclear, spreads through everywhere,
and
extremely popular.
And really, that's exactly why the whole system of slavery was a thing in the first place, was because the mass introduction of tobacco, and tobacco being the most valuable commodity in Europe for probably a 10-20 year period, built the entire economy of the Virginia colony. All of Virginia centered around tobacco, much like in Central American countries, they were single commodity export economies. That was Virginia. And in order to do that you needed to produce it on an industrial scale, because demand was always outstripping the ability to supply. So lots of people, this is a concept called indentured servitude. Indentured servitude is basically temporary slavery. You contract yourself out for a specific period of time in exchange for passage to the New World, land granted to you, and a little bit of wealth granted to you upon your ending of your period of slavery. So prior to the introduction of African slaves, they tried to use natives for a time and they realized it just wouldn't work. Prior to the invention of African slaves, they were just importing their own serfs from England and other places to grow their tobacco. And the thing, much like, and I write the article here because by the time Bacon's Rebellion happened in, I think, I'm already forgetting the date. It was like 1676 or something like that. But basically, the serfs in the indentured servants and the poor whites, which are the most numerous people in the Virginia colony, number one, their elites were degenerate and were, and tobacco was declining in popularity because the Spanish had learned how to source it from Cuba and the Dominican Republic, and so there were competitors for Virginia tobacco. And so basically they needed to supply twice the amount of product to get the same returns they were getting. And so they were abusing and trying to squeeze as much labor out of these poor whites that they could. In addition, they were artificially, the planners in the government of Governor Berkeley, which was very corrupt, were artificially keeping the wages of these, whether they were indentured servants or not, they were keeping the wages artificially deflated, and they were legally restricting their ability to expand into the frontier because they had granted all of this land in the northern neck of Virginia and the James River area to all of these native tribes. And so the whites were not allowed to expand and to colonize the frontier by law. In addition, the
interesting thing with the African slavery, like in America, is that it introduced a whole strata of secrecy into the American society. Because the one thing that the whites could not do as well as these slaves is be very personal for their slave owners.
Mm-hmm.
Because like whites they could serve their time on the plantation, and then they could just do whatever, like they could go wherever they wanted, and they would probably be accepted. They would probably integrate well into society, and they could of course speak the language natively. They had biological connections in their brain that allowed them to interpret and connect with everyone else. Well, the blacks didn't. And they weren't just picked because they were doing like a better job or something. They were also picked because you could confide in them. You could create, and since corporations were created, you could see that corporate espionage would probably go way down.
Oh yeah, and and that's another thing. Like, they were being imported in as this foreign workforce that was just generally liked more by the elites because they were they had all of their eggs in the elite's basket. The planters, they had no world outside the world of the planters. You know, the whites could go to any town, you're right, and more or less succeed there. But, you know, so not only were these people having their wages artificially depressed, being prevented from having any economic advancement whatsoever, all suffrage was taken away from them, but also they were getting replaced by this foreign workforce. So all it takes is one rogue elite in the character of Nathaniel Bacon, who was from the same part of England that Milton and Cromwell were from, a graduate of Cambridge and all of that, who went to Virginia after some disgrace in England. He just whipped up these poor backcountry whites in a frenzy, and because the Indians were raiding the whites, and the whites wanted to go just stop these Indians from killing them. And Governor Berkeley said, no, you can't do it. You can't stop them, because Governor Berkeley had monopolized the fur trade, which was another big commodity in Europe at the time, with these natives. And he was personally benefiting from it. And so if they fucked with the Indians, they were fucking with Berkeley's bottom line. And so he used the power of law to keep them from protecting their own lives. And so, of course, it was just too much at once. And so Bacon whipped them up into a rebellion, marched them to Jamestown, burned the capital of Jamestown to the ground. A lot of slaves joined the revolt, actually. And it failed because Bacon died and they were left leaderless and they were divided and conquered. But Berkeley was replaced by Charles II. And then Virginia kind of reformed itself. So anyway, go read my article. You can kind of see the parallels to modern day. But in the parallels to this
speaking
game,
of the elites, look at this. This is a pretty good scene in Sir Brante.
Yes, exactly. We've talked for too long. But
No,
but
don't say that we've talked for too long. It's like we're pivoting. It's great, you know.
It's
the stream is great. It's everyone's gonna love it. Like, of course, people are going to watch it like as a podcast, or something.
Yeah,
but eventually, I have great ideas for integrating, kind of viewer participation into it, and you love it. You gotta finish Sir Brante first.
Excellent.
So
excellent. But yeah, so we're on an errand with our good friend Thomas in the city, and we're basically just loitering around where the nobles are, next to the silver tree, and Thomas is like, man, commoners suck. You know, no one ever says we get to enjoy life. He's like, oh no, fuck that. Yeah, I know that already. You know, oh yeah, we're supposed to do this. He's like, oh well, but I want to advance. I want to rank up. Gentry, Ultracalvinist gentry. You know. And he's like, oh, but hey, look at how stupid this system is. It's like, your dad's a noble, but like you're not. So why does that work? Or, you know, he's a judge, and he's like, you know, and he's like, but like he still works harder than all of these Arknians or whatever. And he's like, well, the Arknians are racially different from us. This was also believed with the nobility and the commoners in England and other European countries. They were believed to be different races. They were born to rule over humans.
They are never commoners, always nobles of the sword by birth.
Exactly.
And humans will never be their equals, because they are always better, smarter, stronger, and their skin is a noble shade of blue.
So
literal
true.
blue bloods.
I've never seen one. But
now you shall.
Now we shall see one. The Milanidas dynasty. And there is one. We're seeing one. She is a masterpiece given life. She is an Arknian. Clear the way for her.
Yeah, you see, she doesn't have the same like Robert Artram arms. She's very, very elegant.
Dainty.
Octavia Milanidas. Octavia.
Her handkerchief.
Archduke's daughter, and her handkerchief. Let's see what would what would Milton do tonight on Milton World? What shall Milton do? Milton. Go ahead.
I don't think he would do this.
Stash the trophy. No, he doesn't need a handkerchief. But I don't think he would. Would he give it back? He would probably give it to Thomas. He'd be like, "You lost something gay, queer, something like that."
No, but he wouldn't sell it.
He doesn't know what money is. It's too small for money. I think Memento is pretty good.
Yeah, of these three, he would keep it because Milton's a writer. He loves beautiful moments. You know,
Absolutely. We'll have it as a curio. Paperweight? No, not paperweight.
Yes, beautiful cruelty.
Thudding rhythm of hooves. Indifferent cruelty.
We're halfway through adolescence, Bob. Let's see if we can get
brother.
through. 12 years
12
old
years.
now.
Where were you when you were 12?
Starting middle school. And trying to figure out, basically by age, before I even left elementary school, I knew I wanted to be a soldier. So my career prospects were not, I never really gave too much thought to them because I always wanted to be a soldier.
I wanted to become a lobbyist after watching Thank You for Smoking at the age of 12. I was in Switzerland speaking fluent French. Yeah, someone's arguing.
Yeah, they're arguing.
I'll do some
So there's
Russian evil Gregor.
So Bobby, there is a rising middle class coming along whose influence is built on wealth and not blood. And
Merchants.
Yes, the likes of him can never rule anything. They're nothing but a flock of sheep that need a firm, noble hand to guide them.
Gregor talks the talk, but does he walk the walk? Turns out no. He just becomes very, he's too shy at the meetings. You always see him like,
and he's like, oh, da 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 da.
Make them into judges. Ooh. I mean, he says if the Empire rejects the foundations and the lots, the entire edifice will crumble. He's not wrong, because that is the foundation of their empire.
He is not wrong. The thing is it's like, well, what happens when, it's like right now, if they reject its laws by letting the commoners rank up, it will crumble. But right now it's crumbling anyway. It's going to crumble either way. The old order is not working. But in
a way, everyone is always crumbling as we march towards our inborn doom.
My only dream is to see the name of Brante in the Blue Book, but that dream will never come true. They will never call me Venerable L. Brante, and it's all because of this marriage of yours. Basically, he's like, fuck you. I had to come in and intervene and raise your kid.
True nobleman.
And he's like,
Stefan is he's not doing too badly. Spineless milksops. Oh, I love this one. I love how they translated
spineless milksops.
Milksops.
Oh, I'm going to school. I don't want to go to school.
He's going to school at 12, and in fact, this schooling is like you grew up really quickly in this game. Like at 12, he's already. He's doing that. He's writing with a feather pen, man. Have you ever written with a what's the name? The fountain pen.
I have not had the. No, I have written with one before, actually. Yes, but I don't use one usually.
When I did my classical English schooling in late elementary, beginning middle age, it was like key stage 2 they called it. There was a time when the teacher was trying to teach us how to write with a fountain pen, and all I did was spill ink everywhere. Not because I couldn't write with it, because I like spilling ink. But I would like, that's, and then I just stopped because it was just insane. Like I couldn't hold myself. Yeah, Nathan is by the door. Yeah. So what's happening here?
So in essence, we've been studying in Sir Tibor's school, and we're about to take the final exam to determine how good we do and what we're going to go into. Mom wants us to study theology. Thomas wants us to defend our childhood fort from a bunch of bullies. Our father wants us to study law and history so we can be a noble. And Nathan just wants to talk to us.
They're all good. I mean, even Thomas makes sense. Honor, defense, fight.
Now, what would Milton do? Milton would probably
What
do
would Milton do?
this.
Study theology.
Milton would probably do this.
Not a bad idea.
But if we're doing lotless,
And it's very interesting. Law and history, focus on law and history and study theology. It's kind of weird because you see here there's a separation between theology and law and history. Whether I don't think at this time period of Sir Brante they would have this distinction. It is more of a modern thing because theology isn't studied in Russian schools. I swapped a lot of schools when I was a little kid, and I remember we had theology in one of the schools, but it was very rare. But this is something that is in Italian schools as a separate subject. But I don't think it was the separate subject back then because, as you remember, all of these places were religious places, like schools. So theology and law are the same thing in this universe. Because, God is present. He's omnipresent. I mean, he just revives people. He makes miracles come true. There's a giant eldritch. What's the antonym to eldritch horror? Very interesting.
divine. What is it?
Divine love, maybe?
Was it godly miracle? Something like that.
Yeah, the godly miracle tree. And so law and theologies are one and the same. The explanation for why is the law like this was because of the theological explanations. Because the twins came down to earth. So, and this is one of the very, very few moments of this game where you can see the modern world peeking through.
Yeah, that's true. We have to.
History and theology, especially history of this world, it is theology because it's not. God, it happened, and it didn't just happen that far, that long ago. It's still happening. It's still in the process. You meet these people. Your story is being made. And, if I were to write anything to Sever, which are the people who made this game, I would say this. I would say that there is no distinction between theology, law, and history when all of those things are happening at once. In our world, we can say that theology has already happened. That the end of history was Christ on the cross. Anything after that is just our attempts to come closer to Christ.
That's
to
true.
Sort of get redeemed, maybe even not for ourselves, to feel worthy, feel like we are worthy to enter his kingdom. That's why there's a tragic story with the Japanese. They've never really recovered after they got introduced to Christianity. They still have like every video game, like every JRPG where they try to kill God. A lot of their things are, them engaging in the modern world is always weird. And
it's because they were the only country, or one of the only countries, to kind of crush Christianity.
Well, they didn't. They got crushed by it because it told them that all of their history past 0 BC was just useless because they were constantly sinning in the archery term. They were missing the mark. They were just doing things that had nothing to do with reality. Shit, they had people were writing books, people were making poetry, people were fighting wars, and then here you go, that a person comes in with a theology that has already happened, with a theology that doesn't just make sense, but that the moment it is revealed to you, you understand that it is true. And so many of them converted. So many of them converted that they tried this whole thing with first they accepted it, and then they tried attacking it, burning, torturing Christians. But in the end, what's happening is that their society is, while it has these sort of stratas of wallpaper coverings, with Japanese symbols and Japanese deities, there's no spirits, there's no house spirits, there's no animism like they had. It is clearly a Christian society with Christian architecture, with a Christian structure of companies, with Christian relationships, with Christian values. And man, like it's tough to accept. Like Russians never had to do this because Russians, even though they got introduced to Christianity later in life, they did not really have history. They wrote books, but it was like a different kind of books. A lot of them really just liked writing, and then they would discard the birch, and then they would write. They would make hymns, but Russian paganism wasn't far from Christianity. It was them. It was more like a survival guide for the horrible shit that was around them. Because like Russians,
yeah. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, but you just make a point. I think it's very similar to the Germanic tribes because they had no real. It was the same thing for them. Their paganism was just a sort of glorified survival guide as to how to live in their environment. It wasn't like a real thing that most people like really believed in the sense that they believed in, because after Christianity was introduced, we were forever altered into looking at our own pagan past through the eyes of a genuinely believing like Christian present. And in many ways, people talk about this Germanic folk religion that like Wagner was creating. That did not predate the 19th century. The 19th century basically invented our concept of what our pre-Christian past was. But the thing is like it was invented to kind of just be basically this prologue, like our own version of our own Old Testament, leading us to our own adoption of the New Testament, if that makes sense.
I mean, everyone that saw Wagner plays and appreciated them was a Christian.
Exactly.
And so it was for Christians. Whatever he was making, whatever he was saying that this thing happened, it was still done through a Christian lens, through Christian, Christian biology at this point. Like generations and generations of people that have been like bred specifically to appreciate the world that we live in and to understand the sacrifice of Christ. And so it's I do ultimately believe that there has been someone messed with time, or maybe time flowed in a different way. I think that after the fall of the Roman Empire, or during the continuous fall of the Roman Empire, basically Christians that went to the various places in Europe started their own traditions and gradually lost focus. And then they were reintroduced to it. And that's why most of them converted. That's why they resisted the Romans so much. Not because oh man, they're just invaders, but because they were pagan invaders. And a lot of the times atheist invaders whose religion was like Sandbach says, was Rome itself. We march upon the stars. Yeah. So do you think it's going to be focused on law and history or study theology?
Well, it says secular studies, and that's the thing it says down there. Milton, I don't think liked secular stuff too much.
I think it's theology.
Yeah, theology for sure, but I've got there's a really big part of me that wants to do the game mechanic choice, but we're RPing. So
yeah, let's do theology, even if it.
We'll do what Milton does.
Go ahead. Push Nathan out of the room, man. That's cruel.
Our mom likes us for sure.
You quote eminent theology.
There's laws within laws. The nobles themselves are a microcosm of the entire society.
Father asks you about
school. So nobles of the sword are hereditary noble. Nobles of the mantle are kind of like a sort of gentry position where you are. Gentry is when you are successful. But yes, there's even a name difference. El Borne is a noble of the sword, which is a name change, meaning he is hereditary. But, you know, nobles of the mantle are kind of like, you know, you're a noble, but it doesn't pass to your kids. Stand above all human... They even use the word gentry here. But they're using the word gentry to refer to all of their nobles and not, like, the actual term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a mistranslation.
Yes.
Because you know, the structure of the elites in Russia differs slightly from the rest of the Western world.
Yes. But
It's
Arknians...
in fact in Russian, it's not servant, it's господин.
Господин.
And of course, господин, it's written as господин. Господь is God. It's like Lord, but not exactly like Lord, because like Lord of the Rings in Russian is Властелин колец. It's like that who no, whom who rules over the ring. You know,
Mhm.
so in this case, they translate it sir. Sounds better, of course, but slightly different once again. Because sir is like sire, right? It's like it's like birth, like family. So, you know,
Hey, Bobby.
господин is more about rule. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna go get our last cup of coffee and see if we can plow through the rest of Adolescence. I know we've been streaming for almost 2 hours now, but I don't want to stop the stream till we finish Adolescence because I don't want to split it up because we're already halfway through. But I'm gonna get another cup of
How
coffee.
about one second? Can let's do a 10-minute break?
10-minute break.
Then we come back. We finish it up.
All
Okay.
right, that'll work. We're just gonna keep the stream running. So if whomever is watching, just we'll be back 10 minutes from now. Which my current time is 10:48. Your time is, I guess, 4:48 p.m. Bobby. Okay, I guess Bobby's already gone, but we'll be back at like 10:58. 10 minutes from now. So if you're watching this after it's live, just skip ahead about 10 minutes, and we'll be back.
Okay.
So I'm back. I don't know if Bobby's back, but I'm gonna fill.
Yeah.
Oh, he's back.
Right.
Excellent. All right.
The
Well,
okay. So, what do you think? What are we gonna choose?
there's nothing to choose right now.
Oh yeah, we chose theology. Forgot. Yep.
Well, we're in school again. I need to finish up this piece of toast, but we're in school again. And you know, noblemen's sons and commoner sons are both attending the school. And Diederik, and a bunch of his goons are bullying all the commoners, but they don't pick on you because your dad's a noble, even though you're a commoner. But they do love
They
picking on
don't
your
pick
boy.
on you because you're Milton.
But they're fucking with your boy Thomas. It is early
Thomas
morning.
Zane.
The students are busy flocking to the classroom for the next lesson. What is it? You wave to Thomas, and what does it say?
Bucket full of slop.
Yeah, they dump slop on him.
Assholes.
This is just what they expected, and they are free to retaliate. He barely makes one move before the four pairs of hands grab him at once. Diederik sneers and kicks your friend in the belly. So basically, they're ganging up on him, and now you're placing yourself between them. And Diederik's like, "Why are you like helping this commoner dude out?" Now,
Actually, this like mass bullying may also be the sign of feminization of society, because
men don't bully.
well, that's not exact. So you can have one big bully.
Secure men
right?
don't bully in the sense
Think. Well, you need someone to basically be like the police, the social police, and you can have one big fucking bully that bullies everyone or whatever. That's and he's lobster. Yeah, he's a big lobster, right? He's a big blown up mountain of steel and blood and cum. But if you have these, in Russian it would be staiki, which is like not herds. What do you call it when it's a bunch of birds together? Flock. Wonderful. Yeah, we have like this flock, and in it, some are clearly leaders, but a lot of them have actually higher like estrogen levels than the normal population, because kind of. The idea of complete social compliance and this ease of and refusal to examine like both sides or maybe even the unpopular sides of an argument is indicative of this pathology. There's actually been studies made of this, and in fact bullying is on the rise, especially this flock kind of bullying. You see it everywhere: academia, police. Some of the highest rates are in medical professionals, but of course women, nurses, extremely high. They have higher rates of bullying than the military, or than
true.
but another one is kind of weird, but firefighters actually have quite a bit of bullying, but not as much as the nurses. The nurses report like crazy amount of shit, but and like various metrics, so it's not just like women saying, oh, she said some rumors about me.
Well, and that's it. Really is like the way women bully each other. Women get into like little packs, little hives.
Yeah.
There's always a queen bee, and like her little entourage, and of course, they'll even extend influence. They'll go as far as like the queen bee will sleep with guys or try to sleep with guys that her entourage likes or that her enemies like, so that, you know, she can lord it over them and stuff like that. And
Mean Girls.
Exactly, it's Mean Girls.
Wonderful reactionary kino in a way.
Yeah, this is Mean Girls basically, and it's like the guy version of Mean Girls, and really like, you know, and yeah, you are correct. Like, there's one dude who's like big and tough, and he can stand on his own, and no one really messes with him. And if he tells you to do something, you'll usually do it. That's different. You are right. That's just the natural order, though. You know, it's like the difference between a lion and a pack of hyenas. But
well, it's ordering. You know, it's like the king. You know, as above, so below.
Well, and Terry Davis said that we live in anarchy right now, because anarchy is when the weakest individual can, you know, shit talk the biggest alpha male in the world and not get his head chopped off. You know, that is
anarcho-tyranny, right?
That is tyranny. Tyranny is natural. Order is natural law. And God uses the weak to humiliate the strong, because only an act of God can have the strong overcome by the weak. And that's why God doesn't like it when the weak are set up above the strong from the get-go like they are in our society.
I guess it's the difference between force and violence, which, you know, it's kind of very interesting that force in Russian is, well, it can be sila, right? But it can also mean strength. But violence is насилие, which also has that word in it, but it's obviously like, you know, to violate. For example, you have rape, but in Russian you don't have like there's an old word that's not used. Usually you just use the word for violence, you know, and it's conjugated in another way, but it's still the roots are the same. And you know, if you go to prisons, like, you know, in prisons, a lot of people who are there for serious offenses, they have these weird ass pathologies and like mutant biologies, and they have like the feminine, like weird feminine stuff, and in fact they use rape as a, you know, as tyranny a lot of the times, especially in Russian prisons. It's bad, but it's nowhere near as bad as the American ones, because it's normalized in America.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, like America's prison system is one of the things I think that just needs to be just totally just torn up and started over again if we win. Like, that's one of the things that, you know, people don't spend enough time thinking about. But anyway, I digress. I'll tell you what. I think Milton would basically go to the teachers. Milton would 100% sick the teachers on them, because you could say Milton is very perceptive and he understands that there's always a bigger fish. There's always a higher priority. And the best way to solve problems is to get the higher authority involved. And so that is what we're going to do.
This is like the noble way to be a tattletale.
Oh yeah, but you're not nobles yet. You know what? All of you are not nobles.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting that in a way him going to the teachers is what a noble would do, right? Because like you're using, you know, judge. You could say you're interpreting law. This one, I think they kind of missed this, or maybe they didn't. I don't know, but. You know, you see, they're guilty of defying the law, but in a way, you going and doing these machinations also defies the law.
So Milton gets the big man involved, and now he's 13 years old.
Right. Oof. You know, big brain man. Go. Getting closer, growing up, moving up in the world.
We're sitting beneath the tree. Lovely tree. The roots are pulsing.
Wonderful.
I'm feeling the tree. I'm feeling it.
Yeah. It's a big tree.
It's a big
crammed hovels and filthy streets surround the trunk of the tree, because the bottom of the pillar. It's like the physical representation of the pillar that you can touch. But it's very good. You know, it's the one thing that this game says that I think no other modern piece of media is that like religion is unequivocally good, and there are like this is the good religion.
Yes.
Like, this is just, and whatever paths you choose in this game, like it's not even argued, and everyone that argues against it, will see the consequences of it. So small path. Let's see.
Small red
Tree impresses you with its might. Yeah. Filled with a desire to sit down.
Mathilde.
Yeah. Lady Pilgrim and, a small girl. Matilda Preacher from Astinia.
Yeah, anyone who sets out to read the accounts of the twins' own lives knows that they never so much as mention the lots. What?
Yeah, look at this. This one's pretty important. Let's go. I'll read it. It is commendable to see a young man so keen to learn the teaching of the twins. Paul, go back so I can read it.
I've already done it. Maybe you're a little bit behind.
Yeah, I'm slightly behind. I just want to read it for the people who are listening to it as an audio. It is commendable to see a young man so keen to learn the teachings of the twins, she says. Yet you will never follow the light of the truth within the walls of the temple. Inside you will find only the lies about the lots, the erring words of Prophet Ezechiel, sanctified by the passage of centuries. Anyone who sets out to read the accounts of the twins' own lives knows that they never so much as mentioned the lots.
So you can see this is really not only just Protestantism, but it's really New Testament too. It's like the ministry of Christ. He's like, look, this is actually exclusively like almost aping Christ in a way. You will never follow the light of truth within the walls of the temple. So they're making
within the walls of those temples, of the old temples.
Well, but like the thing is, in the Old Testament, the temple was built, and it was the place where God's presence was to be felt at its most. But by the time of the New Testament, God's presence had pretty much completely left the temple, which is why it was filled with money lenders and extortionists and all of that. And that's and when Christ does his ministry, and he goes to the temple and he says, and he drives, he's like, this is my Father's house and you have made it a den of thieves. But this was the claim of Christ. It's like, my Father is no longer within the temple, and and this is and Protestantism very much set itself up as this attempt to recreate Christ's ministry, i.e. the presence of God is no longer in the temple of Catholicism. And this is something Cringe Walker will argue about, is this eternal battle between the religion of the prophets and the religion of the temple, and he says they are not the same.
I mean, it's a very contentious topic that has been there were a few wars waged over this question.
Oh no, there have been more than a few. But basically, this is the first time you are exposed to an alternative point of view, and you don't know how to deal with it. You suddenly feel a small, warm hand grasp your own. You see a girl right next to you. She is just a little older than you, wearing a black dress, threadbare yet almost spotless. Her hair is covered by a handkerchief, even though it's not right here, with only a single golden lock showing. Her brown eyes are burning with rage, her hand pulling you away from the red-haired preacher.
Yeah, it's...
At the strange young girl, your cheeks flushed by the sudden touch. There's just a bit of color on her cheeks, too, but then she starts speaking to you quickly. Don't listen to her. She's dangerous. Come to the temple with me. Only there will you see the truth. You stand there surrounded by the crowd of praying pilgrims and the sounds of shuffling feet torn between two people you have never seen before, and each of them expects you to follow her. Women. But all the while you hear the whispering of the wind in the tree's branches. The branches reach out for you almost as if the tree wishes to speak to you itself. Can you hear its voice?
Very interesting.
What would Milton do?
What would Milton do? The girl in the temple. I mean, look, Jean, my waifu, right? Like big waifu in this game. I think, perfect character. Chef's kiss.
I always go for Octavia because I'm a sucker for appearance. But Milton would unequivocally do this. If Milton's about to get an epiphany, he would just give into it. That's what Milton would
give into the epiphany. Revelation of the tree, very interesting. Man, let's go ahead. I want to see this one.
I don't need either of them. The tree will give me the answers.
Mm-hmm.
The world.
The ant's hard work.
The world is one big ant farm, Bobby. And at this very moment, you see yourself and all the other people for the ants they are.
Ants they are. Oh,
You can't
cool.
look away from the tree. The people around you begin to fade away. Their voices melt together and disappear. The world that surrounds you feels frozen and still. The slow swaying of the rustling branches is all there is. The branches catch you and raise you up. You soar in the air, higher and higher along the trunk of the silver tree. The branches, the leaves, their light is blinding. Their light holds you up and embraces you. And at this moment you realize something as clear as the daylight beating down on you from high above. The tree is divine. There is no doubt left in you. The tree was planted by the twin gods and left in this land, an ever-living proof and a mark of the twins' existence.
Twins' existence.
And the tree, it speaks to you, speaks in a language you understand, in the language you learned long before you were born. It speaks of soothing love and of crystal clear law, and of love and law intertwining to bring the miracle of life to you. From this
Crystal clear law. Very interesting. It's like it's not up to the interpretation.
Nope, it's not. No, it's like unequivocal. From this high up, you can clearly see all of the land below. From here, you see the entire empire embroidered with a shining thread of providence, solemn providence played through.
Solemn providence. I was about to say that. This is the new religion that is springing up, or like the the divergent religion, is kind of wrong that it says that, oh well, the lots were not part of the twins, because it's like they don't destroy the world. They don't judge harshly if you follow the lots and if you follow this law, and it is perfectly it's perfectly aligned. But the twins, and we'll kind of discover, the twins don't hate the new religion.
Yeah, it's like
they're
go ahead.
Well, because there's still lots. They're still going to have lots. It's just that they're going to say it in a different way. People are still there's going to be a higher rotation of lots, but that already happens. People already can become priests. They can become peasants. It's just that you have to have a specific kind of life experience, like a divine thing needs to enter you. So it's already kind of like what's coming in the future, but in a way that accelerationists, they want to make it go faster. They want to make the lots rotate faster, and it's not that different. The twins are not angry about that.
It's like an S-curve I'm drawing on the screen right now with my mouse.
S-curve.
It's constantly, it starts really long and really slow, but then it starts getting smaller and faster.
Yeah, we'll see that the issues in this case, there's nothing so egregious as the indulgences. In fact, I might be wrong about this, but I don't think Martin Luther, when he started his whole thing, hated the Catholic Church.
Oh,
he was an ordained priest, right?
No.
He
thought that he was helping the Catholic. He loved the Catholic Church. He wanted it to remain what it was. It's just
later on, obviously, he writes stuff about Rome and so on, but it's because they violently rejected him.
So, I mean, that's how it is. But from this high up, you can clearly see all of the land below. From here, you see the entire empire embroidered with a shining thread of providence, illuminated by the twins' presence. It takes you but a moment to finally realize what the teachers have been talking about all this time. The fates and lots of the people, the workings of life in the empire. It was all created and arranged by the twins, and absolutely everything bears their mark, their design, and inspiration. And it is in this world that you are given life. Somehow the tree seems to realize that the revelation is now fully within you. It gently lowers you back down to the ground. You glide down between the glowing branches, illuminated by what you have just seen. You spoke to them? You come back to your senses. You are still standing by the tree, firmly rooted to the ground. The branches release you. You are once again aware of the pilgrims' prayers and the noise of the crowd. The young girl in black is staring at you. She is clearly agitated. My uncle is a priest, and he told me the twins can choose to speak with you through the tree, but I've never seen it happen before. Jean starts asking you questions. She wants you to... Jean, or I don't know. She wants you to...
Jean.
Jean.
It's different. It will be Gianna in Italian. It will be Gianna in Russian.
She wants you to tell her what you just experienced, but you cannot speak. It is so difficult to see the temple's familiar interior again, to see the district around it and the sky above. The memory of the sight from atop the silver tree now gleams in your mind. I just hope you'll share your revelation with me someday. Don't worry, I'll get it. My name is Jean. Jean, I don't know. I'm an acolyte. I work in the temple.
Jean.
I help my uncle clean the ground and cook food for the poor, and I also greet the worshippers. People come here all the time. Many are lost, and they don't know where to go once they're inside. But nobody should feel lost in this place. This temple is for all the estates. And that's the thing, Bobby. You know, the problem with, like, this sort of revolutionary sentiment is that the one thing, and this is, you know, this is the famous thing talked about in the Brothers Karamazov. Dostoevsky, I think, you know, talks about this better than I think any other Russian writers. He's like, they're having this, I remember they're having this argument. It's Ivan and his father, what was it? What was his father's name again?
I could not, you know what? We will one day have like a series of stream where we read some book chapter by chapter or something.
Yeah, the Brothers
And
Karamazov.
I hope we read that because I'm not good with Dostoevsky in Russian, and apparently my dad isn't good with him either. He sounds strange. He sounds, once again, he sounds like he's drunk, like when he writes this. And yeah, it's the one thing that I could not brave. So I don't know.
In Dostoevsky, in the Brothers Karamazov, they're having a discussion before their father is murdered. It's the father who's kind of like the sort of the smiling merchant who's skeptical for smiling merchant reasons. The sort of, you know, the drunk merchant who just doesn't really care. Then there's their son, who's the intellectual atheist, who is Ivan. Or no, it's not Ivan. Ivan is the middle son. Then there's the oldest son, who's like the military dude who, you know, who's like impulsive and all this other stuff and like believes but just doesn't believe himself worthy. And then there's Alyosha Alexei, the very famous, you know, pure saintly figure. But they're having this they're having this discussion, I think, with Father Zashima. I think Father Zashima is there, who's like the sort of archetypal Orthodox living saint, like the master of the monastery. And they're having this conversation as to whether or not the church should be the temporal rule as well. And one of them is making the point that if the church were also the temporal rule, then the criminal and the penitent would have nowhere to run from the state. And so when she says, what is it? When Jean in this game says that the temple is for all estates, that's true. You know, this idea that on Earth we are not equal because that's just a consequence of reality, but before God we are all equal because they made all of us, and like therefore just because one thing is different in composition, this really is Calvinist solemn providence, but it's like all are equal in the eyes of God because the eyes of God sees all of us for what we really are. And if we are all made, then I don't know. This is like minor theology.
There's a libertarian theology part about this. It's called Skid Row. That they believe that Skid Rows should exist because they harbor all estates, and they like help them go up, because that's the bottom. And you should have like one place. You should not like disintegrate the Skid Row, because what happens is that. But you know, do you think our society has become like less religious, or because of this new religion actually more religious but in a bad sense?
It depends on what you mean by religious. I mean, if you define religious as adhering to the, I know this is, I'm dodging the question.
But you sense the K lines coming from this question, right?
Yes, I do.
It's a difficult one. I think we can like save it, and then we can finish this up. You can think about it, like, and then we'll, you know, next stream we'll kind of see if we can answer it.
We can talk about
maybe
it.
Maybe I can
more,
formulate it better. Yeah. Let's go ahead. Let's continue.
Please listen to me. The few people ever see these things. The twins, they were speaking to you and you heard them. It's a sign. You should become a priest. You'll be guiding those who cannot hear the twins. You'll be helping their souls find the way to the top of the pillar. It's the most honorable calling in the world. And now we're acquainted.
Yeah. Jean.
Revelation of the tree. Mother is waiting for you on the porch.
Founding of the empire. Yep. School day has ended. Father left on a trip.
Son, could you put your things away and come pray with me?
Yeah,
You join mother in a prayer to the twins. She prays with fervent sincerity, her head bowed low, reciting the words of obedience to them and their greater design in a barely audible whisper. You repeat after her, just as she has taught you ever since you were a little boy. She really does have a peasant woman's faith. It's like a simple, unchallengeable thing to her.
Very, very, very full of suffering.
Yes. When the prayer
definitely
when the prayer ends, mother sighs and turns to you. Paul, my son, you are 13 now. You'll be grown soon. It's time you learned about certain things that are important to our family, difficult things. It's about your father and me, about our marriage. You gaze curiously into mother's eyes. I'm sure you've wondered about this before. Your father is a nobleman of the mantle, so how could he marry a commoner with another man's child? But you see, Paul, your father, when his first wife, Amalia Elborn, died, it was a powerful blow to him. He lost the will to live, lost all purpose. He felt like his own destiny was cut short that day as well. And then he met me. You know the troubles I had in the past. I went to the prefecture as a petitioner to ask them for help, protection, justice. When I was a young girl, I worked at a small shop that sold crockery and dishes. A nobleman took a liking to me. May his name be forever forgotten. The twins know I was humble and honored his lot to rule, but he took me by force. Mother falls silent, summoning the courage to continue. Gloria is that nobleman's daughter, but he was outraged. How could I have the gall to burden him with low-born progeny? He turned me out on the street with that little baby girl in my arms. Mother's voice is shaking now. You take her hand tenderly. I had no home, no honor, nowhere to go, no one to help me. When I went to the prefecture, I didn't really think the judges there would help me find justice against my former master. But when Sir Robert heard my plea, his eyes met mine, and I believe that, at that very moment, the twins themselves granted him the gift of their love. Your father told me that there was nothing he could do to make that detestable nobleman marry me, but he would never abandon me and baby Gloria, and if I agreed, he would take me into his own home. And I knew it, my son. I knew how much his honor and reputation would suffer, but caring for me brought him back to life. It's like he experienced another sacrament. He rediscovered his noble purpose, his lot to rule and protect and care for others, but his decision to marry me, he is still paying for it today. Your father had the courage to defy your grandfather, the founder of his bloodline. If only you knew how much he had to endure, my son. If only you knew the despicable rumors we heard about the Brantes all over Anizote. It was only thanks to the efforts of Sir Gregor that the Brante bloodline managed to hang on to what little remained of its reputation, and now the noble families have all but forgotten about the scandal. Thank the twins. Mother falls silent. She looks at intently. Do you understand what she is telling you? My son, I'm not telling you this just to share the pain of my past. I have no reason to complain. Even Sir Gregor has accepted me through gritted teeth. But you need to understand the heavy burden our family must bear, including our scandalous marriage and Gloria's foul origin. And Gloria...
That's heavy. Gloria's foul origin.
And Gloria, she can never be a Brante. Even if the elder Brantes agreed, the news would stir up the old scandal in the minds of high society. And if that were to happen, Paul, they would see even your birth as illegitimate. What if I told
Not an issue.
What if I told you just now is something you would have to know, my son? You have to know, son. You are about to enter adult life, but my lot, I must be humble. By my lot, I must be humble. I cannot tell you how to treat your family, but may I ask you the question? Now that you know all of this, do you still see Gloria as your sister? So,
I think we do, right?
Well, yeah, of course we would. This is just like you're a son of a. I mean, so this brings up an interesting sort of query that this game. You know, we're talking about the feminization of society, right? You were talking about rape as a compliance earlier. You know, so basically, a nobleman liked her, you know, but didn't want to lower himself to, like, basically he wanted the benefits of this good-looking commoner, but didn't want to, like, take the responsibility. So he takes her in, has his way, and then when she has a child by him, he turns her out on the street, which is a very feminine thing to do in the worst sense.
Well, yeah, he evades responsibility.
Exactly. And you know, and you know, this. I'm not going to talk about PUA and stuff like that, because they would look at what, you know, Sir, what's his name? What's my father's name?
There's a terrible truth hidden in here, that statistically, we all know what is the favorite kind of pornography of women. All right.
Yeah.
For men, it's lesbians, and for women, it's.
Yeah, well, and the thing with it is, though, right, is that it's because women don't know what it actually is.
Very true. They like the what is it? The sense of danger and like the sense of adventure.
Yeah,
travel and all that stuff.
But
of course.
they don't. But here's the thing: like, you know, if you ever talk to a female who is a victim of rape, you kind of realize that brush with reality has completely changed how she sees everything. And oftentimes there's some of the kindest, most nurturing, like most virtuous people you will meet in the feminine sense. And they can be the opposite too. They can succumb to it. But in this instance,
I have how to say, I know a person like that kind of that did not become a virtuous person because of that.
Exactly. And so, and like all other things, it's like everything in this game and in real life, it is a choice that is laid out before you, that, you know, that you can choose to go one way or another. But the reason I think that what Sir Robert did, you know, his wife has died. He has a son with her, but his wife has died and he sees her again. I would say that what he did was probably the most noble thing he could have done in that instance. He not only, what nobles are supposed to do is they're supposed to take the commoners that are referred to as within their household and take care of them as though they were family. And because that's the patriarchal structure. And when Robert sees Lydia with her, you know, with her product of an evil noble's sort of worst desires, I think, and he didn't have to do this. As a matter of fact, he did this at great personal cost. No one would have. It's different, for example, if, you know, and I get what the PUA guys say when it's like society tells you to man up and marry the, you know, whatever. That's different if it's like a peer pressure thing you're getting forced to do. But actually, society would have lauded him if he turned her away, or if he would have. And so he actually, I think he did the noble in the sort of platonic sense of the term, in the most pure of essence sense of the term, by taking her in and marrying her and treating her as his wife and raising Gloria.
And we see that it worked out, that she was a great wife to him, and that she bore wonderful children. Like, it's not so because we see kind of the consequences of it, we can say that it was a good thing. But of course, there's always the danger that you're going to accept every single person. You're going to attempt to right all the wrongs in the world through that way. And people can take advantage of that. So it's not without reason that society disencourages those actions.
That's correct. But here's, in this instance, right?
Yeah.
You always judge a mountain by its peak. Always judge, always judge people. Well, how should I say this? Always judge every. I'm trying to find the words to say this. Like, always.
We have we have this kind of, we have the gift of seeing their lives, and we are the judges of their lives. And in this case, we can definitely say this was good. This was not done out of some like noble poverty that Nietzsche talks about, right? This was not done out of some want to become popular, or even want to do like, you know, like this performative good things. Like, and it's you know, the game tells you that this was a good thing, and so the metaphysics tell you that this is a good thing, and it's a good thing. It's like, it would be strange if we would argue that, oh no, he should have done this thing, when that's a whole different game. There is no game where he doesn't take Lydia Brante as his wife.
Yeah. And I mean, and you know, he would have even done the good and noble thing if he had just tried to get her taken care of, taken into a convent or something like that. And she probably would have been grateful for it, you know, because it was better than being alone on the streets. But he went above and beyond what was expected of him, not just by society, but really, honestly, probably by the twins. And
you could see it as the Evolian, man that doesn't care about this like temporal society. But fuck, if you want to go there, we could even say that this is an act of like divine egoism, something like that, like where he just thinks that he is the hero in his story, and a hero acts like this, and like damn society, like all of that.
That's fair enough, but either way, I kind of wanted to talk about that, and that is why I think Milton would do this.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Accept Gloria as your sister?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. And Gloria is now our sister. Everyone's happy. And Lydia is wonderful.
So now the women in my family love me. This is very much a Milton move right here.
Very, very difficult.
Another theology lesson. Today's sermon is about the priests and why the clergy is the only of the three estates with the right to interpret the lots and guide the other two estates accordingly. Tomas sits next to you, huffing and puffing as he fervently writes down the teacher's every word. But you've heard all this from Mother many times before, so you take this moment to daydream a little. Father promised to take you to the capital once your studies are complete. But the teacher suddenly casts a stern look around the lecture hall and raises his voice at one of your classmates. A boy by the name of Brian.
This one's good.
A boy by the name of Brian jumps out of his seat.
Let me read it.
Okay.
A boy by the name of Brian jumps out of his seat. The teacher asks him to repeat what he had just said. Brian freezes and seems to shrink. Tries to master a reply, but nothing comes out. Go ahead.
You're a little behind, remember?
Yeah, it's fine. The class becomes agitated. Someone is about to get punished. The teacher now looms over Brian. The boy's cheeks are flushed, and his eyes are covered in tears. You all watch the teacher's iron-bound book as he raises it sharply. About to strike, Brian shrieks and raises a hand in front of him. A sudden flash. The teacher screams and buries his face in his arms. His hair is ablaze and his skin is covered in horrible burns. It's magic! Real magic! Just like in the books about the Magra Rebellion. The class freezes in shock. There is a dull thud as the iron-bound book falls to the floor. Brian's hysterical laughter rends the silence. He stands up from his bench, fire in his eyes and sparks on his fingertips. There are screams now. Students run for the door. The teacher tries to extinguish his burning hair. Brian snaps his fingers, and the books of Isacius on the desk turn into pillars of flame. He laughs and raises his arms, and the curtains catch fire. One second.
I will continue reading. The screams grow louder as the fire howls. Brian's face is tense and violent. His mouth is spewing flames and his whole body is shaking with laughter. He steps toward the door. You and Thomas glance at each other. He's going to burn the whole school down, Thomas says. Your friend's determination makes you brave. You run behind Brian and knock him off his feet. You both tumble to the floor. Even through his clothes, his body sears your flesh. Brian screams, convulses, and grabs Tomas by the shoulders with his burning hands. Tomas howls but stays put, then knocks Brian senseless with several fierce blows to the head. There are servants fussing around the room now. They put out the fire and take away the teacher, his body covered in horrible burns. You and Thomas remain next to Brian, who is lying on the floor, silent. Soon 3 men in black cloaks enter the doors of the school, each bearing an edict sealed with silver. The Inquisition. You and Thomas are told to step away from the witch. They lock Brian's neck in a silver collar and take him away. One of the Inquisitors remains behind to tell the students what happened. That was magic, he explains. The ungodly power that twists the minds of men into savage instruments of murder. Only the sacred shackles of silver can hold it at bay. Only the power of the twins can save us all from its evil grasp. The next day you are forbidden from ever mentioning Brian's name again. He is no more.
Look at
Thomas
that.
likes us.
They even have school shooters here. But it's, I mean, that's terrifying.
A great
Magic.
day looms ahead. 100 years ago, Uther Tempest was anointed to rule over the empire. Blessed by the twins themselves, the emperor's reign continues into its 2nd century. Celebrations in honor of the Tempest dynasty are held throughout the city, and the school is closed for 2 weeks because of that. On one of those evenings, Father tells everyone that grandfather is going to bring Stefan back home for the holiday. They say families should celebrate the day of anointment together. You could benefit from your elder brother's company. With his noble education, Stefan might be able to teach you how noblemen are supposed to act. Soon, Stefan arrives. He now handles himself differently. When it comes to ordering servants around and ignoring Gloria, he is still grandfather's double. But he is more grown up now and far less haughty to you.
Alright, he's learned his lessons.
Yeah, he's
getting better.
Yeah, he's getting better. It's dark. It's a dark winter evening. Okay, we're sitting in
Damn
the library.
cold wind, man.
We're sitting in the library. You know, he's telling me about all these places I read about. Nathan comes in. Nathan says, "I can't find Gloria. I looked everywhere. She's not in the attic, not in the sitting room, not in the kitchen. I heard she wanted to sneak off the rooms of Char Milanidas's palace. She could be lost in there."
Yeah, like there's still ruins.
Me and Stefan exchange looks. Shara Milanidas, the rebellious.
Interesting that they don't destroy the ruins, even though this is clearly like a really, really, really bad Jew. This is like their version of Hitler, the Austrian painter. But in this case, it's like, you know. But this is of course coming from. Do you remember what Spengler said? Is that the practice of artificial ruins is omnipresent in Western civilizations.
Yes.
Like no other place does artificial ruins, because like there's something so important in this like version of history, that this is how it is. And I mean, even if you go to, you know, like Rome today, that's what you'll see.
Yep. We leave ruins standing because they're like ready-made monuments.
Well, I think it's more about like just that. This is maybe it is like power in some ways, you know, because you're integrating everything that was into what is today.
Yeah, maybe.
But I think you know, people were better at it before, because they used to take the stones from it and integrate it into their own house. Or they used to live in the ruins, like you know, there's a castle here in Cacamo in Sicily, and this castle is over 1,000 years old. It's like Norman or whatever. And for the longest time, people just used to live in it. You just used to live in the walls. People used to live in the courtyard, like just like it was normal. And then then it got sold to the government, and the government restored it. And it's pretty good now, but it is kind of dead. You know, it's like
they kicked everyone out.
There's no security. Like no one's looking or whatever, and it's always open. It's free for me because it's always been free for me. I've always refused to pay for the tickets because they're like occupiers or whatever. And I've lived in this town for longer than I've lived in Russia. And they know me, so they like. But you know, you just walk into it. You walk around, like you read stuff, and like and there's never any problem. But it does feel as if like there was life there that isn't there now.
Yeah, it's kind of like the museumification of our own like ruins. You know?
Yeah, it's total state. You could definitely say that the total state eats history as well. It's like it eats time, which is very Landian.
It's ironic. It eats it by like forever what is it? Petrifying it.
It's kind of weird because like, the difference would be like the danger would be that people would slowly kind of destroy this history by basically building over it, which has happened. You know, you could see a lot of towns which are just built on top of each other.
That's the natural thing, though, right? That's the ship of Theseus. You're using the old part, you're replacing the old parts with new parts, and repurposing old parts, and then eventually the ship is completely changed. You know,
I think there's something in us, in the Western man, that wants to preserve what was, and it's not like the Asians or whatever. Like in Russia, not a lot of things are left. Yeah, there's like the Kremlin Wall, but I mean it was destroyed. Like this, it's a little bit similar to America, how 100 years is a long time. And for Europe, it's not. You know, 100 years.
But for Europe, 100 miles seems like forever.
Yeah. But you know, my dad used to tell me stories that when he used to buy houses, he'd go to the basement, he'd dig through 3-4 meters of muck, and then he'd find a marble floor with 6-meter tall ceilings. And he was just like, well, why is this here? And there's just stuff under it. Like, you can, you know, if you ever come to St. Petersburg, one of the things that we should do is hire a guy that can take us from the basements of the houses there to anywhere in the city, because it's all connected. There are rivers underneath St. Petersburg that you can build a raft on, and you can just sail through old basements, old metro stations, all that stuff. It's all connected. It's like an underground Venice too.
It's like, you know, it's funny, when I was playing Metro Last Light, I only played Last Light. I didn't play the older ones, but I played Last Light, and that was interesting to me, is that it's like that was kind of the whole thing, is it's like they were all sailing through this underground metro, like metropolis, kind of like it was Venice, and I like that.
That has a bad opinion of Metro in Russia. He says that it was built beautiful because it needed to distract people from their squalor. But man, it's very beautiful. You know, St. Petersburg Metro or the Moscow Metro, it's a work of art. You are entering a different world. It is all in marble. There are statues. There are things on the wall. It's nothing like whatever Metropolitan is here in Italy or anything else. It is a work of art, and I don't think that it was made just as a political statement. I think that there's something deep in the Russian soul that wants to maybe like surprise, something like that, like because I mean the metro is a very utilitarian thing. It just you know, it goes fast. It's like futurism. But in this case, it doesn't go fast. You know, it was made to be specifically slow. In this case, to be beautiful, to look around, and you know, like, I don't think it was a communist thing, because communism wants everything to be utilitarian. It wants everything to be very, very, what is it, like for the use of everyone, as simple as possible. And even if we're talking about like the occult parts of the Russian communism, which is like, you know, the mausoleum and all that stuff, it's well, it's not marble, right? It's not. You know, it's not like. Yeah?
You could argue that, you know, Russian culture, and this has always been like, Russia's kind of been the weird mirror of the West, in the sense that, like, you know, different from like metros you were talking about, like, Russia always gets Western trends the last, and then it does them the hardest. You know, for example, duels. That's the one I'll bring up. Duels were actually a phenomenon of the late 17th and 18th century and really the early 19th century. And Russia didn't really get them till much later on, and immediately it was like a frenzy in Russia. Like, I don't know how many duels Pushkin fought in, and he died in one.
Yeah.
But like Russian noblemen were just killing each other, just like on the spot in these duels, and and it's kind of like it was kind of like I don't know how I could say it, but it's like how like if you're the older brother, your younger brother, if he's younger enough than you, he kind of starts like pretending to be you or trying to do what you do to impress you. I think that's kind of what Russia does to the West. It's like they always get these Western trends last, and they try to do them the hardest and kind of confuse what they were intended to do.
You're very right about that.
Maybe that Metro is another example. Like they tried to do it better than everyone else and just kind of confused the purpose of it in the first place, which is good because it leads to beautiful things. But
the one thing that I think Russia is actually like going forward in it and innovating, well, it's video games, because Sir Brante was not made by a Western company, and a lot of games like Stalker was not Fallout. And Metro was not Fallout. It might have been a little bit Stalker because it's the same people that made it. They just split from the company. But like even Tarkov bore an entire genre of extraction shooters now, and there's lots of stuff like that. Like there's even it's very original ideas, and it's strange that this is really the only place where they come from. It's because music is incomprehensible to a Western person, like Russian music. I mean, I like it. There's a lot of amazing groups, but you're going to listen to it and it's just gibberish. It's not even like Italian music where you can catch the rhythm, you can kind of understand a lot of the words. That amore means love, but it's even though the composition is similar or the same, the words are completely different and they mean different things. And so music is inaccessible, right? Movies, absolutely inaccessible. Like if you translate it, you lose the entire point of the sound, because sound in Russian movies is done differently, and dialogues are put on different frequencies. They're put lower, or they're integrated more. They're like, like the French people did with, I think it was called the New Cinema. Right, so that's inaccessible too, and a lot of that stuff isn't translated. But games are, and games do sell, and they set trends, and there's like, and they are always, there's always something, even if it's as kind of gameplay wise bankrupt as Atomic Heart, and it's pretty much just BioShock. There's still a great story in it, which really is just the last like 2 minutes. As stupid as that sounds, but it has an amazing ending. It's just like wonderful. But and we're sitting here and we're playing through a Russian game that is very well translated. I am very satisfied with it. It's like masterful. Good job on them.
And speaking of, we mentioned duels earlier. We're about to I think we're getting into one. But we're running over. Our brother has his sword, and we're gonna go find Gloria in the ruins
of the castle.
And we're telling Nathan, "Don't narc on us, little man." Wait, why is he determined to rescue her? Are you wondering why I care about Gloria all of a sudden? I can't act in any other way, can I? The law of honor compels me to protect my family. Gloria will never be a Brante, but father still took her into our house. I must respect his seniority and defend Gloria like she is one of our own. You are a Brante too, noble or not, which means it is your duty to aid me. The ruins of Tsar Miliandis' palace span an entire district. The palace was abandoned centuries ago, and its remnants are overgrown with a thick underbrush. The ruined palace is empty, nothing but cold wind blowing over crumbling brickwork. Even the worst scum of this land steal clear of this palace. You make way through the ruins, and we find, a sheet of our sister's paper. Then we hear loud laughter. We pull our stuff over it. Oh no! Gloria's lying down, face down, twitching inside. A gallop of drunk young thugs surround her, cackling and swinging their arms about.
I don't know, some retards.
No. They're about to. We're not going to talk about. We're not going to talk about what they're probably about to do. The
street thugs recoil in fear.
But then they realize, oh shit, there's like 4 of us and 1 of him.
Sticks and stones. Go ahead.
What would
What would he do? Did Milton have a fight? Did he participate in a war?
I know Cromwell for sure did, but we'll see if did Milton ever fight. It seems like Milton would call the guards, but I need to Google him real quick.
He is leaving his brother, and thus far he has never left his loved ones. When they needed his help. Maybe besides Nathan, but then again, he needed to study theology, and that got him a conversation with the tree. Let's see. He wouldn't charge the attackers, obviously.
Oh no, he wouldn't. And he's not really a fighter either. I mean, he's defended his brother before, but
I think it might be the guards. Yeah, I think you're right.
He would go call the guards.
Yeah. I just hope Stefan doesn't die. One of them will flank Stefan. Yeah, and you can run. Oh man, he collapses. Poor guy.
He did well for himself. He got 2 of them.
Yeah. Sir Gregor, he really likes Stefan. The one light in his life. Acted like a true nobleman.
Even defending the family.
Yeah, no, he understands it. Even Gregor relents. He's like, the deeds will forever be remembered in our family's blood tide. Ooh, this one's very cool because we'll see it later in the later stuff.
Had you acted differently that night? Who knows? But
no, Grandfather would never be proud of him. Wasn't his law.
Oh, yep, we've rounded up all of them.
Trial of the assailants. Yep.
Grandfather demands true death for every single assailant. You ask father to explain, how can a legal court sentence criminal to true death? How can worldly judgment overrule the twins' law? Your words are true, my son. Their law is second to none. Yet the twin gods also made the empire in all its ways. The court of law exists to execute the laws of heaven here in the world. Should the court of law sentence a person to death, the law high above will always enforce it, and so every execution brings true death. The commoners who assaulted Stefan and born noblemen have committed a grave offense. There is no doubt about that. And yet, according to the emperor's decree, even commoners have the right to defend themselves when they are about to face true death. This means that all of us will have to appear at the trial and testify before the court. So here's the thing, even in this world where there are nobles, they still have trial by jury. Which
Very interesting.
Yeah, which is I guess they still treat true death as a matter of some weight and gravity and importance, even with commoners.
Yeah, it's tough. It's like true death really is. This is a society that I think is, despite its ample experience with death, is much more afraid of it than I think today's society.
And
it's very, very careful.
And I think that's just because time goes slower. When time goes slower, you tend to encounter death more. You have enough time to. It's like. I'm going to do one example because I really do want to get to the. And we've had some really good conversations, but I do want to get to the end of this chapter.
Amazing, stream. Very difficult, but I think it's like we're it's diamonds.
We're trying our best, yes. And this is why it's eventually, when I get the money to be able to do it, I want to sell my car and get a motorcycle. Because a motorcycle forces you, actually time moves slower on a motorcycle. You are forced to pay attention in ways you are not forced to in a car. For example,
maybe you should start with a bike.
Well, I already
or a quad.
Or a quad.
No?
Well, I already have a bike, and I've ridden ATVs before, but which is what we call quads here in the States. But you know, a motorcycle really would be like what I'm looking for, because it's kind of the best way you can acquaint yourself with the world. But anyway, you know, when time moves slower, and the only example I'm going to bring up is if you're on a motorcycle, and I've been on a motorcycle before, but if you're on a motorcycle and you ride by, let's say, something like roadkill, you know, you have to smell the rotting flesh. You like, or you're riding by a field of manure, you have to smell the manure. Like in a car, you're kept in a sort of every single automobile is its own little pocket dimension of existence. And it's a moving pocket dimension. You know, what happens in a car is self-contained to its own little sphere of existence. But on a motorcycle, you have no such separation. You are in the world and a part of the world. And that's why so many people do it for, you know, personal journeys, because you very much feel like you are in the world and that you're not in this like teleportation, which cars and buses and trucks very much feel like. And I guess that's one of the things I'd say, since we're going into, I think, you know, Bobby, I think time is slowing down. I think by time speeding up, time is also slowing down, because it seems like things are speeding up. But as it's this funny thing, it's like, you know, NASCAR drivers would talk about once their car got up to about 200 miles per hour, it actually, everything slowed down to them, and they would almost fall asleep going 200 miles an hour because, and Cringewalker talks about this, rocket ships go so fast that they actually go slow, you know?
Yeah, but it's also because they're ships.
Yeah, exactly. But regardless, Gloria visits our room, you know, and she's and she's talking to us, and you know, the trial's tomorrow, and she's telling us that Sir Robert isn't even going to mention that she was there because it would ruin the case. Why am I always in the way? Nobody ever mentions me. Nobody has to listen to me. It's like I don't even exist. And I thought Stefan standing up for me finally meant something. Maybe I'll become part of the family, but no, everything is back to usual now. Gloria tries her best to hold back the tears. You do your best to comfort her. Father just needs to keep the family out of trouble. If Sir Robert believes that I only bring trouble, why did he took me? Yeah, this is a mistranslation. Why did he take me into the house at all?
Yeah. Oops.
Gloria runs away. Return to your books, but you can't help but get lost in thought. What if they told the court you weren't there either? How would you feel then? There is a knock at the door. It is father. He closes the door behind him and sits next to you. There is an exhausted look about him. Son, you will be testifying before the court tomorrow. Please remember what I'm about to tell you. Gloria wasn't at the ruins at all. You went there with your brother to inspect the historic site. The low-board men insulted Stefan first and then attacked him. Stefan had managed to deal with the assailants on his own by the time the guards intervened. Gloria will cast suspicion on the case. If we mention her very existence to the court, the reputation of the family will suffer. Your grandfather will never forgive me if that happens. Do not let me down. We are all counting on you. You recall the night of the fight like it was a moment ago. Gloria sprawled under the feet of those crackling thugs. Her poetry, her greatest treasure, scattered on the ground. She thinks she's all noble. Those were the words they spat down at her. But doesn't grandfather mean the same thing when he denies that she is a part of a family? But if you do what father tells you, the trial will end quickly. Those commoners will face true death for assaulting a noble. If you mention Gloria, things will get complicated and you cannot predict how the trial will end. What is more important to you? What is right or what is just?
I think, of course, if we're talking about, you know, tribunals, a lot of it is linguistics. And if we get an option to convince father to change his mind, in a way that's what all writers do, right? They constantly try to change the story. They change the mind.
Writers change story. They change the flow of existence around them, is what writers do.
Very good.
They rewrite existence, and that's what
they said there. That's what they said. They said that the trial may go quickly or slowly, depending on whether you say the truth or the lie. And
he is going to. And writers. An ironic paradox of writers is that writers tend to be the most truth-loving liars you will ever find.
Truth-loving liars.
Because they are all writers are liars because they are telling you fiction. Because all fiction is lies. All fiction is lies. But everything written is fiction.
All right, let's go ahead.
And we will convince father to change his mind. You are not going to bear false witness in court. He is a judge himself. How can he make you lie? What of Gloria? Is she not a Brante too? Does she not deserve justice? Or maybe grandfather's right and she's just a freeloader, deserves nothing but shame. If so, then how come father agreed to take her into his home and under his protection? Saying this to father is tough. Go ahead.
He is he's just going at it
Deep inside, you pray he hears no weakness in your voice and sees no blood rushing to your cheeks, but it seems he is listening to you intently. The wrinkles on his forehead grow deeper as his fingers stammer out a staccato against the armrest. This is going to be tough, son, but you're right. You are right. I took Gloria into my home, and so I must protect her like my own daughter. This was my decision, and I must stand by it. I will speak with Stefan in the morning. Now I pray your grandfather never hears of my change of heart. The day comes. The trial takes place in the lesser hall of the city prefecture. Sir Elborn himself presides as the judge. You are the first to testify in court. You tell the court the truth about that night, how the thugs humiliated Gloria, and how Stefan and you came to help her, and how Stefan defended his half-sister. Out of the corner of your eye, you watch grandfather's face grow red, yet he remains silent. There are confused whispers in the hall. The commoners on trial cry out, "It's the truth. Gloria was reciting poetry, and they simply told her she was defying her lot." The situation has changed. By this account, Stefan was not acting in defense of himself or another. He merely assaulted them first in order to retaliate against those who insulted his half-sister. You spread your feet to stand firm and inhale before you speak next. You ask the hall, "Is it not a nobleman's duty to honor his family name? Gloria does not have the Brante name. But your father took her into his home. Therefore, it was Stefan's duty to protect her, as he would have protected any of you." Contemptuous chuckles rush through the courtroom. You have just reminded the city of father's shameful second marriage. Stefan is to testify next. He reluctantly confirms your testimony, glancing at father and grandfather all the while. His arm in the sling is his main argument. Stefan wanted the commoners to stop insulting Gloria, yet in the end the commoners were the first to insult him. After a short recess, Sir Elborn returns and rises to deliver his sentence. The court of Enizate finds you guilty of assaulting Sir Stefan El Brante, a nobleman who stood in defense of the honor of Gloria, a member of his household. All 4 defendants are sentenced to death by true hanging.
First, Augustine. Of course, like, you know, they should have just told us, oh, the judge is Augustine.
Yeah, like this was decided from the beginning. Like,
everyone, yeah, of course, the 4 young men are literally faulted for all eternity. It's a society where, like, you know, I mean, does the existence of true death make it worse than, like, death in our world? Kind of.
I think it makes it the same. I think.
Yeah, I think because it's like, you know, you taste dying and it's not that bad, right? Like each time you die, small death, it's I don't know. I mean, it's a pleasant experience. It's not like you feel fear. You feel love. You feel affection. You feel the fact that you are secure.
Well, it's a pleasant experience the first time. As the times go on, it feels a bit different.
Well, it feels different, but it never feels evil. You know, it never feels like you're going towards hell. It feels like you're being judged, sure, but there's never a threat of eternal hellfire. In fact, like, I guess, because this is the small difference is that bottom of the pillar is treated differently than hell. It feels as if, like, you're prohibited from being with everyone at the end. It feels like isolation, like eternal isolation.
Well,
okay.
So yeah, and you know, the true law, what is it? The dreadful power of the law, and it is stern and just. That very power has been invoked by the sentence, and by that very sentence, the lives of 4 young men are literally forfeit for all eternity. The gallows await. Stefan stands in the front row. Father stands next to him. The wood creaks. The trapdoors open under the young men's feet. They dangle and they are wheezing and reaching out for support with their feet in their final moments. Grandfather's silence ends at home. He screams at you and Father, at Stefan and Gloria. This trial is a disgrace. His screams are punctuated by the thudding of his walking stick against the floor. Father says they had to defend their family. It would have truly been a disgrace if they had shirked their responsibility. Stefan excuses himself to bandage his arm in order to stay out of the argument. Gloria is quiet but glowing. You stay quiet too. It's all over now. It is all.
He soy jacks all over the floor.
Nobody bullies Gloria on the streets anymore. Those 4 commoners are dead forever. Their families were taught a cruel lesson. So will it be with anyone who dares to raise his hand against a nobleman. Yep, family is shit, but internally it's totally fine.
Yeah, it's just Gregor's just like, oh, it's tarnished honor.
Yes.
But ultimately, we know that this is the fall of the empire. So a
unique event is happening.
Honor in the city isn't as important as family, because you're essentially entering post-apocalypse.
Yes. The day is sunny, scorching, and hot. This is an event that happened because we got to a certain level of spirituality. A book about the twins' great descent, which is when they come down every year. They hear shy, quiet steps. You know it's Nathan, and he's sitting next to you, and you tear yourself away from the book and look at your brother. He's deep in thought. He's fidgeting with the symbols of the twins, and what is it? Cross inside a circle and a lash bound around the sword. It is Nathan's pendant. He wears it all the time, but not today. The silence wears on. He takes a deep breath, and his eyes narrow. You can tell he's thinking, and he's going to ask you something. Tell me, Paul, the twins, they hate me, don't they? Nathan's voice is quiet yet firm. The world falls silent around you. Not even a gust of wind can be heard. It's as if everything is waiting for your answer. You look at your brother again, confused. The youngest brother, the most unassuming child. He is quiet, obedient, and thoughtful. He has been your responsibility almost since his birth, yet he has never been a burden. Father was always aloof around him, and mother was too tired even to smile. Even grandfather seemed to avoid Nathan with his scorn. He's just treated your little brother like a piece of trash. He never called him by name or always winced at the sight of him, perhaps because he looks so much like mother. But is it true that the twin gods had no love for your little brother? Surely the twins have enough even for little Nathan, do they not? Nathan was born a commoner like you. His lot is suffering. Everyone is tested by the twins before their true death. No one can experience mercy along their path. No one can expect mercy along their path. He was born the youngest child in your family. That is his trial. Should Nathan persevere and bear the burden he was dealt, he shall yet reach the peak of the pillar when his time runs out. There is no hope in Nathan's eyes as he looks at you. Guiding others in matters of faith is the clergy's lot. You are no priest, yet you cannot stay quiet. You see his pain, you see his trepidation, and so you will tell him what you think. What you are about to say may be a turning point in his life.
Very interesting. So do the twins hate him? Obviously not, because the twins don't hate anyone. Like, what do you think? What do you think he would?
If I did this though, it would trigger. This is the RNG event. What would Calvinist solemn providence Milton say?
Well, it's actually different. It's not that they hate him. Look at this. The twins are love for all that exists, or the twins are stern and ruthless, and it's both. I mean, that's the thing. That it's that. I mean, he's not wrong. Like, it's not wrong that they love everything that exists, but it's also true that they are stern and ruthless. Where does the word ruthless come from? Without Ruth? What's Ruth?
Ruthless. The origin strikes me as French. No, it's not French. No. It's not French. It's
Latin?
Hold on.
Isn't it like Germanic? Something like that.
Having no pity, merciless, cruel.
But just like, because it's ruthless. What does it mean? It's ruth.
The noun ruth, which is now considerably less common than ruthless, means compassion for the misery of another, or sorrow for one's own faults, or remorse. And
where does it come from?
And just as it is possible, hold on, can be traced back to the Middle English noun rutha, instead itself from run, meaning to rue, or to feel regret, remorse, or sorrow. So it's Middle English, which means it's
like you rue the day.
Yes, exactly.
Very cool. Yeah.
So the thing is, though, is it's like both of these are simultaneously true, but which one would I emphasize in response to this question?
Can you say that they're without the twins are without regret? That they do not regret making the world. I think the second one is good, even if it confirms Nathan's fears. I think it's more encompassing. Because if they're without regret, well then, like, they're pretty satisfied with what they made.
What is it? You are quiet for a moment, and then you speak. The twins are stern indeed. They pay no heed to the wishes of men, for they are gods. They have their own vision, and they follow it to guide all people to greatness. But how can the twins guide people when they are not people themselves? But there is a positive side to all this. You do not have to love them either. After all, how can you force yourself to love forces that hate you just for being born? How can you force yourself to love entities that see you as wicked beings that can do nothing but blindly obey their will? For our gods have no mercy indeed, and their law is inhuman. We have to accept it, for it cannot be changed. But when your true death comes, there are two paths open to you. You can be brought to the peak of the shining pillar, you can be cast down into eternal suffering at the foot of the pillar. If you wish for the twins' solace and eternal bliss in the hereafter, submitting to their will is the only way. Nathan hangs on your...
They say eternal suffering.
This is the most Calvinist response I think we could have possibly given. Holy shit. Nathan hangs on your every word. The despair is replaced by rage. He leaps to his feet. His fingers ball into fists. A single tear rolls down his reddened cheek. No, that cannot be. It is impossible. You simply cannot be right. The twins are testing me, and they're testing me right now too. I'm gonna tell Mom you're spreading heresy. Nathan screams the words in your face and runs away, his pen clenched in his fist instead of around his neck. You turn back to the book with a heavy heart. It almost hurts to face the cruelty of this world. Will your younger brother weather the storm? You know his threat means nothing. He will never tell on you. His doubt is too great. And so we're both noble and enterprising.
Yeah.
So now we get the admonition, and now we're going to have to go through 2 other events.
I think it's probably best for Nathan. I mean, even though he got spiritually admonished, I mean, that's something to think about. Because otherwise he's like, you know, this is giving him, honestly, I don't know if this is heuristics working at this point. I think we should next time we do this is great for learning how to do streams, but we should limit it to, I think, like 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, we've hit it. We could just, I know we're technically towards the end, like we've got 2 more events to do. If you want, we could stop it now and just finish up Adolescence next time.
I think we're at our brink.
Yeah, and we've got this event, and then we've got the next event, which is, you know, Gloria. So we did Nathan, and we're doing Stefan, and we're doing Gloria, and then we've got like another year before we finish. So maybe if we were doing a different path, but
this is like we went through so many topics in 3 hours that I think our brains are boiling, because mine certainly is. And like, thank you so much, Paul. Wonderful streams.
Yes, sir.
I hope next Saturday though, please let's move it 2 hours forward, or like an hour forward, because I usually have D&D. I usually have D&D with Italians.
Oh, okay, that's all good. It's all good. Yeah, we could
at 11 if you can.
Yeah, no, we can do it at 11 my time. Yeah.
Okay.
But regardless, thank you all for watching and sitting through all of this. If you're watching this in the afterward, this was a long stream, but we're gonna make it short. And we're learning this as we go. There's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot in this game. This game is just nothing but a lot. But I'm liking how we're going so far, how this playthrough is going on, and I probably will never be able to play this game after I'm done.
We're going to try to attempt to learn every single lesson from it.
Yes, sir.
Well, thanks everyone.
Yes, Bobby. Thank you, and thank all of you for listening. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Bye, Paul.